Now here comes old Bob with a mouthful of jive. And I know he's coming.
Forum. I'd like to open the ABR for today, March 7th, 2011. Starting with general business, public comment. Any member of the public would like to address the board on an item that's not on the agenda, please step forward. Seeing no one, I'll close that and bring it back to approval of the minutes of the previous Architectural Board of Review meeting. And that would be February 22nd. So can I have a motion to open those minutes? First by Clay, second by Keith. Okay, so anything before item 1? Item 1. Item 2. Item 3.
Mr. Chair, for item 3.
Yep. Chris?
Number 4 in the motion, I think we could actually just cross out front yard. So it reads, provide landscape and irrigation plans with details for the area of work and the publicly viewed areas.
Okay.
The way it's written, it kind of insinuates that the actual area of work wouldn't be under that.
Okay. So you're crossing out the front yard then. Okay. And item 4, postponed. And that's it. So, all those in favor of the minutes as reviewed, say aye. Aye. Against, the motion carries. With one abstention. Keith, and I actually abstained myself since I was not here. So that would be 3, 4, and 2 abstentions.
Mr. Chair. I don't know. I guess I'll abstain too. I was here for one item. But
can we do that, Gloria?
I don't know if that...
But Dawn was here. So it's 1, 2, 3. 3 have to abstain and 3 are for it. 2 abstentions. That's all right? Okay. That goes well. Okay. So consent calendar. And that would be for the February
28th.
28th. A motion to open those minutes, please. First by Clay. Second by Keith.
Okay, for last week, ABR consent, February 28th, we had item A, 420 East Anapamu Street, was continued to consent for a final approval. Item B, 3805 State Street, got a project design approval and final approval as submitted. Item C, 3430 State, that was a review after final. It was approved with conditions. Item D, 535 East Montecito Street, a review after final to change the paver materials was approved as submitted. Consent last week was reviewed by Chris Gilliland and Clay Orell.
Thanks very much, Tony. All those in favor of the consent calendar minutes, say aye. Aye. Against? Motion carries.
Okay.
It's kind of funny how we abstain from the full minutes when we're not here, but we vote on the consent minutes when only a few people are present at the consent meeting, but the whole board votes on the minutes.
Well, you're voting to ratify the consent calendar decision,
which was really made by yourself and okay. All right, I see that. Okay, great.
So we also had consent calendar today, March 7th.
Okay.
Can we get a motion?
Motion to open the March 7th. Clay. Second by Chris. Good.
Okay, for consent calendar today, we had item A, 1600 Anacapa Street, was continued 1 week. Item B, 2905 Delavina Street, was continued 1 week. Item C, 1014 Coast Village Road, was referred to the full board, so we hope you can look at that as soon as we finish with general business here.
Okay.
And item D, 336 North Milpa Street. They came back for a review after final, and that was also referred to the full board. Consent today was reviewed by Chris Gilliland and Keith Rivera. And I should also jump ahead to an announcement that our first item on our agenda, 29 North Milpa Street, they've asked to be postponed, so they're not here today. So we should have time on the agenda to see these two items that were referred from consent.
Okay. Great. Thanks, Tony. All those in favor of the consent as reviewed, say aye. Aye. Against? Motion carries. Any abstentions? Okay. Thanks. So we're on announcements, requests by applicants for continuances and withdrawals, future agenda items. Mr. Chair?
Yep. I'll be stepping down on item 4.
Paul on 4. Okay.
I'll be stepping down from item 5.
Okay. Chris
Mr.
on-
Chair, myself as well on item 5, stepping down.
Okay.
The Milpa Street item that was brought up from consent.
Okay. Thanks, Keith.
Okay, let's see. Item 1, as I mentioned, 29 North Milpas requested a 2-week postponement. Let's see. A couple of other announcements. We need ABR representatives to attend the Planning Commission review for the Highway 1 Salinas Ramps project. That'll be going to the Planning Commission on March 17th. That's Thursday of next week. And their meeting starts at 1 o'clock. Can anybody attend?
Thursday of next week? Mm-hmm. I am Wednesday.
Mr. Chair, I'll actually be out of town during that, so I wouldn't be able to attend, although I attended all the other 101 DRT meetings, so I'd ask for somebody to fill in.
I have to look at my calendar. Sorry.
Okay. Well, you can get back to me later. March 17th.
If the chair or vice chair are not available,
I could be available.
Okay, I have one. Okay, so I'll. What time was that, Tony?
Well, the meeting starts at 1 o'clock. I don't know exactly what time that item will be on the agenda.
Okay. Okay. For now, it'll be Paul, and if anything, it may be Paul and myself. But
Okay.
we'll keep you in touch. Is that all right,
Okay.
Paul? Okay.
Let's see. One other reminder about your Form 700, the statements, the annual statement of economic interests. We need those, and please let me know when you've completed those, because I want to follow up to make sure you all have got those done.
Okay.
Okay.
turn my name's
And-
name. City
okay.
clerk's office.
And I think that's all I have for announcements.
Yeah. Okay. All that for announcements. Okay, so that brings us to the end of general business and up to the first item of the day that's coming up from consent.
Let's see. We should look at the Coast Village Road project. That was the first one to get referred today.
Okay. Hello?
What address is this? I'm sorry. 1014, 1024 Coast Village Road. It's where the fire was in the two buildings that are next to Vaughn's. Okay. On Coast Village Road. And what the owner, it's a leasehold property, and the owner would like to put the green tile on the two buildings, but Vaughn's has a separate owner. And the Vaughn's people do not want to re-roof at this time, although they may consider doing it later. I mean, obviously at some point they have to re-roof. But this is what's on the existing roof. This is the roof that is on Vaughn's, and this is the tile that is on part of 1014 and 1024 Coast Village Road. When they had leaks, this tile is no longer made. And this was as close as they could get to this tile when they had to do repairs before, but it's not even the same tile. And none of this tile is available now. And so what they're wanting is to put the green tile on, because the vendor has offered them a discounted rate on this tile, and they actually like the tile in relation to the color in the actual total project.
Do we have a
Pardon me?
Do you have the photographs?
Yes.
yeah. Do we have a plan at all, or a roof plan?
Yes.
We have a roof plan.
Well, I don't have a roof plan. I have this that shows it's these two mansard roofs. And this is where the fire was in this building. And we've replaced we've put on the Title 24 compliant IBPVC here and here. And this tile has to be replaced all the way around because there was so much damage to the members in the roofing that they had to end up tearing up more than could be repaired.
Okay.
There's no way to replace this tile with anything that's close.
This tile does not come in red.
This tile is this.
Only those three colors.
This is a clay tile, by the way, and these are cement tiles. So the tile that's on there right now is a cement tile. This is a significant upgrade, but the vendor's offering them this tile at a reduced rate in order to get it out. It's a product that they're working to get out in the market. This is what it looks like on the roof. On a roof installed. That's our sample that we laid out. This section here on this roof and this section and this section were this tile. And this is the red tile.
That's that.
This tile.
And this is no longer available.
No. Let's show you. And plus, they like the green. It goes with the color scheme. What they're trying to avoid is having the dark brown and the tan in the coloring, and then the dark brown roof. They're trying to keep the roof from being brown. That's why they wanted to go with the green, because they thought it would be a better color blend.
Okay. This is what we have. So I'm going to, any public comment on this? No public comment? We're going to open it up to the board for questions. Okay.
Mr. Chair, no questions. I just wanted to kind of give you the background because Chris and I saw this earlier.
Yes.
And we were uncomfortable with the green, but at that time the applicant didn't have the other samples
These tiles.
of the existing roof or the alternate proposed. So that's why it's here now.
Okay.
So we want to give the applicant an opportunity to get a decision today if possible.
Okay. Ron, any questions?
Can you see that? Yes, it goes all the way around. These wrap all the way around the building. They're numbered consecutively. It's difficult to tell because of the fire. The roof was torn up in so many sections. And it's waterproof at this point, but at some point you have to put the roof back on. Also, this tile, if you went with this particular color, it would cost the owners about $25,000 more than what this tile would cost because of the break-in price that the vendor's giving them. And that would be prohibitive as far as they're concerned. They wouldn't be able to do this tile from a cost standpoint. So we'd have to pull back and come up with something completely different that still wouldn't match Vaughn's, because Vaughn's doesn't have a need to replace their roof. The Vaughn's building is a 2-story building. The Vaughn's building, if you look in the back, it has a 2-story roof on it, and it is separated. You can see the 2-story here, and then this is the project roof. This is what the green tile looks like. That section right there is what this green tile looks like when it's laid up on the roof.
That one there is that, right?
Can I see that picture now?
Yes.
That one there is that. Okay. Okay, any questions from west side?
Mr. Chair, I have a question for the applicant. Is this the only manufacturer that you've researched for for a product?
It's the only clay tile manufacturer. There are other clay tiles, but they would be much more expensive than this. And they're trying to work within a budget.
Okay. And then I assume that the brown would fade somewhat to maybe the middle?
This brown,
Yeah.
yeah, over time, yeah, it will fade some, but they were trying to stay away from the dark brown tile with the dark brown paint.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Gary?
That was my question, so
Okay. Paul or Clay? Okay, I have no other comments. I mean questions. They asked the questions that I wanted. So let's come into comments. And you comments?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think it should be something in the brown range that's similar to what's there now. I don't think the green is appropriate, so I would like to look for some other alternative colors.
Okay. Dawn?
Yeah, unfortunately, I have to agree, and it's only because it's a Spanish-style building for me. I'm just having a hard time seeing the green with the Spanish building.
So the building,
modified Spanish, but anyway.
Right.
But it's because it's a storefront, but 60s Spanish. But even so, I don't know how far we want to detour away with providing future, new detailing on the building that even takes it farther away from the already 60s Spanish that it already is.
Right. Okay, thanks. Paul?
Twofold. I don't think the presentation here is strong enough to sort of convince us that the green is going to work, because you're really changing the architectural character of the entire structure significantly, and what we would need to see is the overall elevation that's colored with the color scheme that you have there. And just to say we're going to replace a roof color, you need to bring more information, because it's not being successful. And so I'm not for the green, and in fact I like the old red clay tile look that it was, and rather you stay that way. And if you're going to deviate from that color, you need to have a better presentation, because you might end up changing the stain of your dark chocolate brown beams and other things. It might spiral out of control, but we need to look at the entire building if you're going to be changing the color of the roof.
Okay, thanks, Paul. Clay?
Not much new to add. I concur with the green isn't the right color for the roof.
Gary?
Yeah, I'm going to also concur that the green is not the correct color, and also the brown is not. I don't feel the brown is the correct color either. I mean, there's the pink flooring, and, the pink concrete flat work, and the sandstone and the browns. Browns would be too much. So I would suggest that they look for another manufacturer.
Yeah. Thanks. Chris?
Yeah, I agree. I think the green, as Keith sort of said earlier, I consent that it makes it look sort of oriental. Sorry. And so, yeah, I would encourage you to find another manufacturer. It's just going to take a little more research, I think.
And I concur. I think that this picture here actually tells a lot, where you've put a few of the green tiles up. I'm on. Yep. So where you put a few green tiles up and I can just project that across, even that covering that you have there kind of looks green a little bit already, and I'm projecting that across, and I think it really doesn't work with the architecture at all. So like the other members have stated, I would look to maybe another manufacturer, but I think staying in either the very light brown and red is really the direction that you should go in, I think, to make this work. But we're open to other suggestions. I think at this point we don't really want to shoot you down with other colors, but if we look at what you have and we look at what the building looks like, I think we're trying to give you direction that really the best colors that work with that is either the light brown or the red, unless the whole building's color scheme changes. But we need you to exhaust that with the other manufacturers before maybe seeing what else could work, but the green really doesn't work.
Okay,
And
so focus on the concrete in the brown in this shade. Would that be acceptable?
I think that's what's here right now, and I think that can go back there.
Okay.
I think
or
that's
the red.
Or the red. But like I say, if this is light brown, I'm not saying that to put
That's
red
this.
here. Yeah, I'm not saying that if this is light brown and you keep that you use red here. You'd have to change the whole thing.
No,
to one.
everything's coming out.
Right.
Yeah, we're replacing everything all the way around. But it still needs to be noted that no matter what we put on, it's not going to match this roof on Vons.
Which is what? This?
This.
Right. Yeah.
So it's a very dark red. So is it going to be a problem to put brown on if this is red here?
Well, I personally think that's the brown that's there now, and it's been there for a long time. It seems to be working. I mean, I'd prefer red myself, but the brown is an alternate. I think that can work. So, and then
Mr. Chair, may I interrupt?
Yes.
This information that might be helpful. A property owner just recently purchased the property, I believe. I don't know if you're aware of that. At least that was represented to planning staff recently.
Leasehold?
Yes.
Yes.
And so the property owner mentioned that there would be new improvements made to the entire shopping center, including his desire to return the property to its original appearance, and that he specialized in restoration of historic properties. At the time, we said, well, we wouldn't be advocating necessarily designation of the property as being historic. Right. However, we admired the intent of doing that. But as you know, we do have a historian on staff, and we could do some research on what the original appearance of the structure was, whether it was a wood roof or some other type of variations.
Right.
That if that's really the game plan, it could be critical in understanding where you want to have the building head back to, if there really is a desire. And I think they've attempted to do that already with the doors, returning the doors to their original appearance. So there is sort of a different style there occurring with that building. I just wanted to offer that as, if you really want to do that type of restoration, rehabilitation, there are ways to achieve that through research.
Okay. Well, it's good. I'm glad you brought that up, because there's a slight disconnect here between
They're like the Dutch door?
like by you presenting this to us, it would have been good if you told us what Jaime just told us, and instead of you just presenting this by itself. And I assume you're doing this on behalf of the building owner?
Right, I'm with the roofing company.
Oh,
I'm
you're with
Action
the roofing company?
Yes, I'm Action Roofing. I'm trying to get a permit
Okay.
on behalf of the owner. And so that's my area of this is in regard to the roofing portion of it.
Okay, so I'm really glad you chimed in there, Jaime, because what we really need is for the owner then to come back and also give us in some form in a presentation of what his vision of where he wants to carry this, and it would help us make decisions, because we feel right now we're trying to make decisions without the full knowledge of what's going to happen, and it could adversely affect the whole product.
Mr. Chair, I'm in a position to make a motion.
Okay.
And that is the motion is to return the project back to consent with a comment that the green tile that is being presented is not acceptable to the board today with the presentation that's here, and the applicant is to research a color that is more in keeping to the existing roof that's currently on the building, or to provide a presentation that includes the entire coloring of the entire structure, the facade.
Okay, do I have a second on it? Second by Dawn. Yeah, under discussion.
That I don't think that it should be encouraged in the minutes that we are open to a green or to come back with a green photo montage. And I think that it should state specifically that the proposed tiles should be appropriate for the style of architecture. I don't know how you worded it. I can't remember how you
I did say
worded
that the green color was not acceptable,
Right.
and that if they're going to change the color to bring a color scheme, because maybe historically the original color was white. Was a green roof with
Okay.
white trim, and so if they want to say that this is why we're going with the green for all these different reasons, then we look at the entire building and its entire colored facelift.
Can you just read the motion back, Gloria?
Continues to consent with the comment that the green tile is not acceptable. Applicant to research color in keeping with the existing tile color or provide a presentation that includes the color scheme for the entire roof and facade.
Okay.
Nice. All those in favor? You want to say something, Ivy?
Well, I just want to clarify that I don't want the project to come back on the consent calendar if they're proposing something that the consent reviewer doesn't know whether to approve or not. In other words, you're referring it to the consent calendar because you probably expect a green roof not to return. That would be the expectation. I would understand. Otherwise, maybe come back to the full board to approve something.
I would say is the second option of the motion, if they're going to come back with a color other than what's on the roof, that it return back to full board.
Right.
Great.
Okay.
Great. Thanks very much. So all those in favor of the motions, say aye. Aye. Against, motion carries. Thanks very much. If you you can ask Tony if he needs to leave. If you need to leave any of
this, right?
Okay. Now we
I
have
can
a.
leave them all.
Okay. Thanks, Keith. So we have a second item coming up from consent. And I don't know the address.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Sean Unsel with Perkowitz and Ruth Architects. I'm here to represent Fresh and Easy Neighborhood Market, and the project address is 336 North Milpas.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, before you hear this item, I'd like to offer some staff comments.
Okay. Please do, Jaime. Go ahead.
This item has returned back on the consent calendar. However, there are two issues with respect to the noticing of this item. There was a specific request made by an adjacent property owner to provide a notice of this item for future changes to the project. That was not provided, and therefore that property owner has requested that we postpone this item until that proper notice and lead time is been provided. So we often have these type of requests made when someone believes they don't have an adequate lead time to address this board. There have been times where you've commented on the item with the understanding that public comment has not been fully received, and you qualify your judgments based on not taking action because you're still awaiting that type of input. You could do that today, but our city planner has requested that you could carefully consider that, and I believe maybe Mr. Fisher are you here to speak on this item, Mr. Fisher? Would want to comment on that before you go ahead and hear the item.
Okay.
Just offer that input.
Okay.
You could still decide to hear the item, but I think it's important to understand what the concerns might be with respect to these property owners.
Okay. So,
Mr. Fisher, why don't you come on up and...
we'll take Mr. Fisher's comment then before we decide what to do. The mic needs to be turned on. Yeah, just press the mic here.
Good afternoon. My name is Tony Fisher, and I've been asked by Constantino Frangos, which is a neighboring property owner in the Frangos Trust, to gather information related to this item, and that's the reason why they asked to be put on for specific being noticed of any changes to the project. And I understand the city planner has already acknowledged that he did not get the mailed notice. I've talked to him, he's not available. He would like to have an opportunity to look at the plans to see what the changes are in order to be able to intelligently comment before anything is done. I really can't say anything more than that. I'm not prepared to comment as to the changes in the plans without his having seen them, because he's an adjacent property owner and is the most impacted on several sides of this project. And I can tell you he has had a problem in the past not getting noticed. That's why it was particularly of concern to him that he be a chance to talk to you before this one is reviewed.
Are you able to tell us on what side of the project is this property on?
He is has property across the street, and he has property immediately adjacent.
Adjacent. This one?
It would have to be this one. It's on the same side of the street.
On Milpas.
Yes.
Okay, so he just has a general concerns, nothing specific.
He hasn't seen the drawings, so he doesn't know what specific he would have.
Okay, all right, thank you. I think we should go ahead and let's preface our comments when we make them at the end that we haven't heard all the public comment. But I think we're all here. Yeah, we should just go ahead. Okay, so I'd say go ahead and make your presentation.
If I may, our project was approved on January 25th of 2010. And since then, Fresh and Easy has gone through some operational changes with regard to the interior layout of their stores. They're constantly updating their program to best accommodate their customer base and make it more convenient. One of the changes that we looked at in starting the project, and we're ready to start construction documents on this job, the former building has been demolished. There is some environmental remediation occurring on the site right now as we speak, and we're getting ready for an opening this year. And one of the more significant changes that Fresh and Easy noticed was based on the old fixture plan. We had sort of a notched corner here. We were trying to accommodate an existing tree that was not able to be salvaged during the demolition. And if you see the previous drawing, we had a single entry door which was somewhat separated from the sales floor by a row of check stands.
Put that one on here temporarily and pull it off.
This is the previous.
Yeah, this is the previous.
This is the final approval.
I can just kind of compare them aligned here. And you can see this corner is primarily where all of the revisions have occurred with regard to ABR here. We had this previous entry door, so effectively we had patrons coming in and out of the same door as well as stacking here for the checkouts. And it really presented a bottleneck issue with just circulation in general, getting the customers in and out and not having any people or carts blocking that access. So one of the preferred methods of addressing that was that they added a second set of automatic doors here. So we have actually an entry door and an exit door to better flow the customers in and out. And by removing the notch here, we've also increased the width here for 2 rows of carts. So effectively they can come in through here, access the sales floor immediately, and this is where most of the prepackaged meals and all the fresh meat and produce are. And then when you're ready to check out, you come through this checkout and you can exit the building effectively without impacting the entrance here. Now, we did have a little bit of a challenge. There's about a 2-foot grade difference, and previously we had our ramp on this side. So one of the things that we had to do was to restudy the ramp access, how the tower relates to the entry, and I know the board felt really originally that the entry door should be centered in the tower element. So we did maintain that. We actually slid the tower over to accommodate this door access, and as you'll see from the elevations when I get to it, this entry door on this side is centered in the tower element as well.
This These columns that are here have now gone from here to here to here.
That's correct.
So the tower is now moved from here to over here.
That's right.
Okay, and we also have less landscaping in this area.
Well, the corner, just because of the notch, we do have a significant, sizable area here. I would say it's about 7 feet by 10 to fit the same tree that we had previously proposed. The planting that was reduced, and these two are going to be planters. It's all along the Milpas frontage, but we did try to maintain as much as that as we could. We have kept all the same details with regard to the wrought iron guardrail handrails. We are using tile risers and tile pavers up here, as well as some enhanced paving at the entry feature. You can also tell we significantly revised the sales floor fixtures, and we pretty much rotated all of these cases around.
Could you, when you make your presentation, could you just show us what all the exterior changes are
Okay.
and the ramifications?
So that's the plan, and obviously the plan drove some other changes that were significant enough to come back to the board here. This tower previously was, and do we want to compare
Yes.
sheet by sheet? Okay.
Yeah. And then we want to do it in the elevations to see what.
Absolutely. So here's the roof plan, and I know at our final approval there was some concern with the way this shed roof died into the tower element, so I think that has been improved by pulling it away from the corner, and we actually have more of a ridge condition. The heights were all maintained here. I would like to add that we also have placed some of the refrigeration equipment that was previously allocated in this area. We had some fans and some vents, but one of the things that Fresh and Easy is doing is we're going to more environmentally friendly refrigeration equipment, and by placing that on the roof, we actually can eliminate a lot of space that was used in the building, and you'll see on the elevations that we had a mechanical access door that was visible on the facade here, and that's been eliminated entirely. We did raise the parapet, and I've added the top of unit here, which is completely screened by the parapet. So those are about 10 feet off of the face here, and they also will be no higher than the existing or the new parapet.
So it's now been raised 3 feet 10 inches.
That's right.
Right?
So this is the frontage along Milpas, and you can see how the tower is slid over. We've also maintained the tower element, so there's really no changes with regard to the architecture.
I wonder if, that's for the benefit of the public here, just trying to maybe put it under the cameras once. So this is the existing.
That was the previously approved.
Yeah, previously
And
approved.
we had a notch on the corner. We also had a little bit of a odd transition where this tile roof hit that corner tower element.
Okay, so that's the area, and then let's look at the other elevation for now. So that's that corner looking from the
That's correct.
north, looking back.
That's from Gutierrez.
Okay, so now we're going to go to your proposal. So this is what we're looking.
This is
now
the new one. Actually, what
from
we did is we added some additional windows here that are view windows, and a feature that is mimicked around the other side on Gutierrez with this awning. We've centered the tower, as I said before. The door feature is still in the center, and we did maintain the tile risers and the wrought iron detailing at the entry.
Okay, let's look at elevation on the other side.
Same thing goes here. We really didn't compromise the appearance of the tower, other than pulling it away from the building, so you could see how it looked before. And again, we matched this sort of element at the front corner. Oddly enough, if you look at the previous Long's drawings that were approved before Fresh and Easy, the new elevation is a little more true to that original approval.
Are we missing a line in here where the end of the building goes, or is this in line with the back of the building?
Have to look at the plan to confirm it. Maybe
You see how the tower is out, so halfway through the middle.
yeah, there might be a line missing down the middle.
So the end of the building
It's
is right
about
there.
midpoint. That's
right?
correct.
Okay. There are no doors in there, am I right?
No, there's not.
Yeah.
This is actually freestanding away from the building.
Okay, continue. Yeah.
I'll show you the other elevation modifications on the rear side, which is on the parking. This is the parapet that we raised to screen the rooftop units. We also eliminated the mechanical room that was previously on the ground floor. We had some access doors here. And this is now the break room on the inside. So we have a view pane window and an awning that matches the similar awning detailing around the perimeter of the project. And again, this parapet was the one that was raised. Other than that, there's no changes to this elevation.
And
Would you like to look at the old one?
okay, we'll ask some questions. Yeah, let's look at the old one. That's it here. So that was the mechanical room. This
That's
is
right.
now raised up here.
And it creates more of a variation of the parapet height.
Okay. Okay. Go ahead. That's the
This elevation is from the south side, primarily the loading dock. And again, we did raise the elevation to accommodate the rooftop units. They will be completely screened. We did that by jogging the parapet where we occur here. So here's the previous where it was just singular aligned. And here we have another variation in the parapet heights. Same colors and everything.
Is that 2 foot 3 inches difference, or 3 feet 10? Is it 3 feet 10 or 2 feet 10?
It should be about 12 inch. This was actually raised as well, so I think it was at 20 feet.
Also, this one.
And this is at 23.10, but this is I think 22.0. That way there's no abrupt change in that elevation.
Okay.
Other than that, we just impacted the revisions to the particular sections and detailing. Everything's been updated within the section here. In some instances, we raised the parapet to accommodate the elevation differences. All the materials and finishes and detailing has remained the same. I actually did bring some colored elevations so you can see the finished product here.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, staff has some comments.
Okay.
As you look at the front elevation along Milpa Street, I just wanted to pull out some information that was on record for this building design, just to remind the board where you were. Back in 2006, when the project was first proposed, a historic structures report was presented to the Historic Landmarks Commission. And as a result of that report, it was determined that the building did not retain historic significance sufficient to have it be eligible for designation. However, at the time, there were 2 advisory recommendations that came out as with the acceptance of that report. The first one said that the following design revision would be recommended, and it said exploring, revising the design of the new building to reference the surviving features of the Art Deco style building that was originally there. They cited that was one of the few examples pre-World War II. And then the second component was retain existing building setbacks from Milpa Street. And what I've asked Tony to give you is the generous sort of buffer setback away from Milpa Street that the original building had. Somewhere along the line, the building has crept forward. And this latest tower revision does, in fact, push the tower closer to Milpa Street. And it's consistent with the previous comments that were given, to, I guess, from this board to explore that. But it also is a contradiction to sort of the original advisory recommendations. I just wanted to have the board go on record as to whether or not this is the appropriate direction, along with possibly the loss of additional landscaping, which staff sort of appears to confirm that's happening as a result of this redesign. And I think this applicant has some specific reasons as to why they redesigned for entrance and flow of that corner, but it does impact that corner.
Thanks, Jaime. Appreciate that. It's helpful. Okay, are you finished with the presentation?
I think so. I do have Bob Cunningham, our landscape architect, here available to answer any questions.
Okay, great. So I'll bring it back public comment. Anyone from the public? I'll close that then. Bring it back for questions from the board. And anybody's ready for questions? Gary?
Sure, I have a question. I think the previous design, wasn't there a lunch area or a place that people were able to sit down, and it was on the Gutierrez Street side? It wasn't really a thoroughfare on that area, was
that? That was one of the previous presentations, but that actually got removed. I think there was too much debate whether that was something that was really fitting for that side of the street. So I believe through the board here it was eliminated. We did have seating on Gutierrez at one time, though. Okay. I think because it was a shaded area, it was not preferred.
That's exactly why. I remember making that comment.
Other questions on the board?
I have one.
Yep. Go on.
Bob, can you explain why the demolition required the, what is that, a pear tree?
Evergreen pear.
Can you explain why the demolition required that to be demolished?
I believe our previously approved plan showed that was going to be removed.
Actually, that showed it being... Oh, it was showing it being removed? Okay.
And that's because the grading issues involved wouldn't allow, the grade differential was too great to save the tree.
Thanks.
Okay. Chris?
I guess this is kind of minor at this point, but in the back facing the parking lot, there was an espalier treatment in the big blank wall. Is that to remain? Is there still a planter in that location?
Yes, sir.
That's basically here. Okay. I think that's my only question at this point.
Other questions? Okay, I'll have a few. There was also lighting submitted for this project. Is the lighting going to change at all?
No, not at all.
And this, I'm talking about also the parking lot lighting?
That's correct. We aren't proposing any changes to the parking lot or building lighting.
Yeah. Has the tower in this corner, has that been changed at all?
That hasn't changed at all.
That's relocated. Let me just have a look at this. All right. Okay, have you, and this line stays the same here,
That's
right?
correct.
That stays the same. This is the area that has
That's correct.
made the revision, right? All in here. Okay, the back only for the change for here, where this is changed and that door that changed to the window.
That's great.
In the back. Okay, good enough for comments. I mean, for questions. Bring it back to the board for comments. Anyone ready? Chris?
Sure. Well, in the area in question, sort of where the front entry is happening, there's a pretty significant reduction in landscaping there. Had some fairly deep beds in the original approved proposal. So, to me that's a pretty significant loss in terms of the landscape. And in that same area where there would be a ramp addressing the crosswalk across Gutierrez, the interface there where the corner of the landscaping sort of hits that is it's sort of an awkward area if you look at. Actually, just make my way up there and point it out.
Be able to just dog ear that and fill it in with
this is kind of, I guess, all concrete, and this just to me is just really strange. So we might look for ways to modify the ramp, I guess, and just make that work. That area work as a unified solution. That's it. Yeah.
And any others?
I think that's it.
Okay. Comments? Yeah. Dawn?
Yeah, I think that this is a planter.
That's great.
So yeah, if you could curve that so you didn't have to go down the ramp to get around.
Yeah, we
the
can
corner.
radius that or notch it or something.
I'm not really ever keen on reduction of landscaping either, but if there's a way that you could really maximize the landscaping in that area, even at the risk of making this a little narrower but still wide enough to get carts around the corner. And I'm just really happy that you didn't remove the doors from Milpas Street. That was, I remember, a big deal for us. And you even added more, so I'm happy with that. And I don't have a problem with the location of the tower getting moved. I wish that it's the first I've ever heard. I've seen this project from the very beginning. It's the first I've ever heard any comments from a historical report about maintaining an Art Deco style building or keeping it back from Milpas Street when we had such long discussions about the location of this building and its proximity to Milpas Street at the very beginning. So I'm just surprised to hear those comments at all. And to me, at this point in this late state of the project, with the project already having been given final, I don't think it's appropriate to even bring that up. So that's kind of all I have to say.
Other comment?
Mr. Chair, just
Chris.
revisit this. I think, Dawn, were you recommending that this come back here?
Yeah, so you could get around the corner without going down the ramp.
Okay. Well, to me, what that creates is a two-level area. So I think this would end up being a tripping hazard, either coming down from the top or up. So to me, I actually we'd be reducing landscaping more, but if we actually left that and maybe the ramp itself encompassed this whole corner as opposed to, creating multiple levels there.
That's okay. Just right now it's not working with this angle and the other angle.
Right.
It's just not working.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. I had one more comment. I wish there was a better way to make the transition between the parapet heights here. It just looks awkward, just a little bit awkward. I believe it can be done by way of, I think they did similar detailing like that at the Ralph's. They made transitions and parapets and things, and there may be a more graceful way of making that transition, but I don't have a problem with the raising of the parapet.
Thanks, Dawn. Other comments? Okay. I guess my point is, my key point is, I think that the new version has compromised this corner significantly. I see us being able to pull this back and pull the landscaping and squeeze somebody through here. I think that that's really not a good solution if we're building new. I think that a pedestrian coming in either direction here should be able to not be impeded by somebody who is walking this sidewalk, walking this way, and having to either try to use this. Or this transition that we're creating, this little step that we're creating between here and here because of this is actually caused because this building is coming so close. Otherwise, a more traditional ramp system that goes up here and goes up here would be used on this corner. And this particular solution is only being used because we're squeezing that. So we're actually causing this step because of this situation. And I think that this is, I think it's very, very bad.
Actually, if I may interject, that corner did not change. So that was, this limit of the landscaping was the same as the previous approval. As a matter of fact, we just added the ramp. It just wasn't depicted on there.
Yeah.
I think it is something we can look at, but I do want to point out that we did not move the limit of that corner planter from the original approval.
Well, my apologies for assuming that your version did this.
So it doesn't show.
But I would have to say that even reviewing the past one, that would be my
it is
comment.
something that needs to be addressed.
It's something that needs to be addressed.
You're right about it.
Actually, it wasn't addressed.
Well, it
ever.
didn't show the ramp, but my point is this landscaped area was the same proximity to this corner. So that was the point I was trying to make.
All right.
We still had a problem.
I think what existed
It's always a problem.
in that.
Yeah. It
So,
just wasn't addressed on
the other is that I don't necessarily feel that moving the tower is bad, but I do not feel that this tower is really well integrated into this building. I mean, what we're seeing here, if I look at that right there, I'm probably talking 2.5, 3 inches. You know that it steps back?
It's about 6 inches, I believe, at least.
It looks really, really small there. And I think that to have a tower integrated into that, in that kind of transition I think is very weak. I mean, let me preface this comment because I don't want you to think that I'm just making this comment based on what your changes are. I consider that this corner was always a compromised corner, even in the last design. I think it was a solution that came out of many, many meetings of hammering it out to try and get there. Sure. I think it was really a compromise in the end result. And so now that we're shifting towards directions that are going a little bit closer to the sidewalk and that sort of stuff, I personally feel that it's more compromising how much this building comes towards the sidewalk. That's my view. I think the rest of the board they didn't really have any comments on it, so they may not have as much of a concern as it is for me. I would like to see before this parapet is raised that high, was there any reason that some of that equipment could not be put more centrally so that the parapet didn't have to be as high? I know when you put the equipment very close to the parapet has to come up to almost the maximum height that it needs to. If you put it closer to the central part of the building, you may not need to have the parapet that high.
That actually is our low point of the building. That's why we place it in. We're sloping towards the parking lot, so that is the low end. If we put it up more towards the center, we would have to raise an element over here, so that's why that decision was made.
So you've already studied that portion of it.
That's right. And actually, like I had mentioned, I think the original Long's drawings actually showed a very similar and may even have had the same parapet step in height over there. Maybe we can go back and study that. I don't know if you have that in your packet there. Yeah, it's right there. So.
Okay, so and then the other weakness that I thought, and I guess this was always part of the past approval also, was this situation here where we had this tower engaging the corner of this, and it really looks just like a false tower. I'm not sure, again, that there's a lot that you can do about that. That was the previous approval. I always considered that weak. I'm just pointing that out because as the building comes back for review, I just keep seeing it again, and it just, you know, it hurts every time, and it's like the sum of all of these pieces is what makes you fight for what little good there is in the building, and that's why I bring it up, so you know where my energy is coming from to try and make certain parts of the building better, that sort of thing. So, okay, that being said, I don't know if anyone feels the pulse of the board and they want to make a motion. And I guess we'd preface this motion by the fact that we have not heard all the public comment from the neighbors on this. And at this point, is this something that you're going to want to do and come back with a presentation, or are you going to want to wait until you hear all the other public comment before you do anything?
Well, I think we need to know what the public comment is, because up to now we haven't received anything. So
so then what would happen is you'd be back before us with the same set of drawings? Is that it?
I don't know how that works. Would the applicant be able to view these here at the city, the neighbor, or how does that work?
Mr. Chair, we have one set of documents that could be used to be reviewed by the public. The key, I think, direction today would be, is the design generally acceptable, or are there some need to make changes to the design to send them away with a direction to return with whatever changes you like, with the understanding that there probably would not be any issues raised if there's nothing to do with the architecture.
Okay. Okay, so I'd get the pulse from the board.
Mr. Chair?
Yep. Gary?
Yeah, I do like the project. I'm glad that the entry is facing Milpas Street on the corner, and these are things that we were fighting for. When you came back, it was eliminated altogether, and then you ended up putting some towers up. And I'm looking at the Paul Portier's Long's plan, and the tower is moved away from the corner. The only thing that I find that's unfortunate between the current plan and the previous plan that we have is the loss of landscaping. And there's a substantial amount of landscaping. I'd like to put this, Mr. Chair, if you could put that on the corner has a substantial amount of landscaping on both sides of the tower. And I think that's significant because landscaping is, in such a property that is so close to the street, is a very vital part of attraction to a building and attraction to a business. And I think the loss of that we're going to have on the proposed is significant. And I believe even on the Longs building that the tower is pulled back a little bit away from the street, giving a little bit more room at the sidewalk area. I believe that it's worth review, especially at this point where it's up for review right now. I believe it is worth review to see if we can establish at least equivalent landscaping of what was approved in our 2009 project, as well as the last one that we reviewed. We had more landscaping on it. So I'm concerned with the loss of landscaping on any commercial project that's street front, that's sidewalk front, and then we're giving away inches away when we only have inches that was given us to begin with. So I'm opposed to this.
Okay, thanks, Gary. Any other?
Can I just ask a quick question of the applicant, and that's to clarify
Yes,
that the loss of the landscaping is due to the installation of the new ramp. Is that correct?
Actually, it was due to the fact that we added the second entry door. So it was really a challenge to fit a ramp, stairs, and the additional landscaping that we had in there. We tried to maintain as much as we could, but without losing building square footage, there's really no other way to do that.
Mr. Chair, can I get a comment?
Paul?
You can just put this part
previous proposal now?
The previous proposal, and what I want the board to take a look at, which we're all aware of, is this kind of distance, which is the tower from the main front, and then over here would be Milpas. And the massing that the tower, when it's moved forward, what that does visually to us in creating, when we turn this, when we're on the street or we turn the corner, when the mass moves forward, what we sense. And that distance, whether it's 4 feet or 6 feet, is now like this. And we lost this, and it's great for the entry because we have people parking in the back, coming to the front. And maybe we have to let go of it because we wanted a strong entrance off of Milpas. But what that created is it moved this block or this mass more towards the street. So,
I just want to state that we did have it on our previous plan. It was pulled back. We still had the tower. We still had the entrance on the corner. We had things that we're asking for. So I don't want the board to head towards eliminating the entrance on the corner, if that was the direction you're talking about.
I'm not talking about that. I'm having a difficulty with it because I feel like we're losing some open space for the people driving down Milpas because now these buildings are moving closer to the property line and creating more of a verticality when we had an open corner, which is what the old building that got demolished because it had such a significant setback and it had the green space in front. It had such a relief. And this building, when this mass was pushed back another 4 feet or 6 feet, it actually did do a lot for opening up that corner. So.
Well, I totally agree with that. I think that this tall mass that comes closer to the corner makes the aperture in the street as you drive down the street that much narrower, and it brings it right out to the sidewalk. So, I think it has architectural issues in my view that we really have to solve, and I think the planning of this area, I think, is problematic. I can't say that I know what the solution right now is. I commend you for I think that the new door entrance and everything that you guys have done works much better in planning, at least for the in and out.
Right.
And I'm glad that you have thought of doing that. It works much better. It's just that the fallout with the architectural elements on the exterior, it does not work as well, and we have to solve both of them together, and that's the problem. I also think that while this may look in plan as, especially from the other elevation, may look okay, I think that juncture right there where that tower comes up is not very successful.
It's actually here.
Yeah, it looks okay there. But I think when you look from this corner and you look at the 3 dimensions of this as it scales back, as you could see here, I think that's not as successful. Just a little bit worried about that. The tower comes out and we see the back of this a little bit more. So I think that we need to grapple with these architectural issues, and there is work to be done, put it that way. So I don't know, it sounds to me like the neighbors don't have, they probably will say something, but they don't have significant issues until, you haven't changed much of the rest of the other buildings, so there's not much that can happen, so.
Okay.
Anyway, okay, I think members know pretty well where some of the members on the board are and where they are, and I'm open to having a motion for them to return to full board for maybe a presentation of a resolution of some of these comments that we've made, and that we look forward to hearing from the public on their comments.
Mr. Chair, I'll take a stab at a motion.
Great, thanks.
2-week continuance. You want to come back in 2 weeks?
Yes.
Okay, 2-week continuance back to full board with the following comments. How do we want to address public comment? Just that'll happen at full board anyway, so we'll just leave that one alone. Study the corner of the site where it integrates with the ADA ramp. Provide a solution that allows passersby to not have a step in the sidewalk. study the high parapet on the south elevation, the transition between the two parapets. And then you guys might want to help me with this one because there's been a lot of discussion about this, but the proposed tower changes are unacceptable at this point. Study ways to increase the setback from the sidewalk and the transition or connection to the adjacent structures, in particular on the west elevation and the north elevation. And then study ways to increase landscaping anywhere possible.
Do we have a second on the discussion? Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Gary. Under discussion, any elements? I'd ask if they would, we mentioned having a better transition here in the parapet. Oh, sorry. And if they could bring back a section through the mechanical equipment and the roof and the parapet.
We do have a building section there. I'm not sure that it shows the equipment itself. Would you want to see the equipment on there?
Yeah. Thanks. Is that all right? Dave? Yeah. Okay. Sorry, sir. All those in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Against? Motion carries. Okay. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, so we are on the first item of the regular meeting, Tony. Is it 709 East Haley Street? Okay, 709 East Haley. That's number 3 on the. Well, there was. I don't have a 2. I have a 1 and a 3.
You don't have the right, we're all missing pages here. The regular agenda.
We have State Street.
3761 State Street is the next item. It's
Is that
number
it,
1. It's our new number 1. Sorry, Rex.
So
they
sorry,
here?
Rex. Russ.
Hey,
Go sit down.
Wake up.
okay, so we're what? What's the number? 3761 State Street. Sorry for that confusion. This is the last presentation. That's this one.
No.
Substitute.
This supposed to be all the same.
Won't do.
Okay, if you could state your name and proceed with your presentation.
Craig Schallenberger, Kernal Androlitis Architects, and I'm here with Debbie English from DL English Design Studio, and Catherine G. is representing Whole Foods. In fact, Debbie is actually the designer of the project in its current conceptual form, and but we're retained as the local architect to go through the planning process. So
Okay.
I'll try to just walk through the immediate steps, and Debbie's available for any questions that the board may have. So the scope of the project is essentially to create a new storefront, and by adding a new tower, anchor tower that announces the entry in a much more probably dramatic way. You can see. I think we should just start really with the entry. This is the current entry. It's just a small pair of entry-exit doors. that's original to the building when it was the Circuit City. This opening was there when it was Circuit City, and so call it phase one of Whole Foods remodel. Did this, I think, really just to get the store open at the time, but with a bigger picture in mind down the line. You can see that in addition to the tower here, we're proposing a new arcade well, it's not really an arcade, but arch storefront. The new end arch there is actually a recessed covered seating for the deli patio. And an important, I think, point in this is the existing roof, you can see, is all red tile. But what's happening is we're extending a portion of the gable to come out. So essentially what happens is that mass moves over, and we still end up with about the same size of roof in tile that we had before. So that creates the new and announces the entry in a much better way. The genesis for it too was the store, I think, has been in use for a while now and is finding some circulation problems, similar to what you just looked at, it seems like. But the current entry here is very congested and clogged as you come in this entry exit right next to each other. So creating some kind of separation there and a bigger and more pronounced entry is increasing the circulation and flow in this area. Let's see. So then on the other end of the storefront, you've got the new covered seating that is established by this last archway here, and extending the gable out. In addition, there's a new just a man door that allows patrons to get out to the outside. This little seating area doesn't exist currently, but they are proposing to create that. So all of the deli and that type of thing is over in this area, and that'll allow indoor and outdoor seating to complement the existing covered trellis seating. So that trellis that you see there is essentially a trellis to remain. This facade, even though this is dashed in, that's just sort of a rough. There's no demolition of that trellis, and there's nothing happening to this end of the building here. It's just dashed in as a beyond and outside of the scope of work here. I think the next point is this wall, this backing wall here that sits behind the trash enclosure is currently just a plaster wall up to a parapet, and the proposal is to clad the wall in stone. This trash enclosure currently is clad in stone, and we would look to just complement that with full height stone on that wall. I think the last thing to look at maybe is the new clear-story window up above. Oh, and here as well. So just bringing in light, and that is really one of the main functions of this tower as well, is just bringing in light. The store is north-facing, quite dark, really, and just to increase natural light into the store. Right. We can flip to the next sheet if you want to see the side view of this. Looking for this would be looking across the parking lot from State Street. This other view would be looking off of Hitchcock. So again, existing, proposed, north or east and west ends of the building.
This is meant to go in here. It's not showing here.
Yeah, the final detailing, we haven't worked out the parapet yet. This is really at a massing level and initial concept stage.
Okay. Is that it?
Anything else? think we should add here. I mean, circulation, light, announcing the entry. These are the functions.
This is going to be done in conjunction with an interior remodel. Bring some more amenities into the shopping experience and to help improve the flow. So the requirement was to move the doors over to the left, so to make room for some of the other, to improve the venues, improve the flow, and it seemed to make sense at that time that we look at emphasizing the entrance a little bit much more so that it's easier for the customers to figure out where to find it. That's a big thing with Whole Foods. It's one of their trademarks, the thing that they always look to is to be able to identify the entrance very, very easily and for the shoppers to be able to figure it out.
Okay, thanks very much. Okay, with that, I'd like to close that portion and bring it to public comment. And we have one public comment skip here, Killam DeForest. And
So I don't need to sit down.
No.
You want to sit, sir? Have a seat.
No, I'm okay. Thank you. Kellum DeForest. This remodel of the old Circuit City, which is now Whole Foods, cannot be looked at just by itself as if it was a store like their last one, that is their new one on Memphis. It's in a parking area. It's set way back off of State Street and off of Hitchcock Way. And I don't know if they have any control over what goes on. Like, can they redo the scruffy parking lot? Is that working for? Is that parking lot, which never was very satisfactory? Is that part? Can that be part of their project, or maybe that's owned by somebody else? And also, we have the problem of the old Glendale savings building that sort of blocks their whole complex from street visibility. So I think this body ought to see the impact of what they're doing on the whole corner, the whole acreage that this building sits in. Thank you.
May I respond? I have a little history I can add to help with that, I think.
Okay.
Because we did a phase, like I said earlier, essentially a phase one, and part of that phasing was to tear down an existing building that created a ton more parking on the site, and indeed the entire site was a new parking lot, new landscaping.
Yeah.
I mean, Whole Foods has done.
We've seen the different iterations
over and above.
Yeah. We saw the parking lot improvements.
Right.
Actually, not too long ago.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Good.
Okay. Thanks.
But they need to. But it should, at least for the public, be included in the in this presentation.
Oh, absolutely. You'll see a site plan and all in the going forward for sure. Thank you, Callum.
Thanks. Okay, I'll close public comment and bring it back to the board for questions. And Keith, nothing yet? You could come back to call me if you want.
No questions.
Paul?
No questions.
Ray?
Is this a trash enclosure, or is
It's
it
actually a transformer.
Sorry,
It's a
transformer
Okay.
enclosure.
Because
Not easily moved.
when we reviewed this a long time ago, there was discussion that might be relocated, but that's not being relocated at this point. My next question was referring to these renderings. Are these renderings, we assuming that these are off?
I think it's a little bit because things like that.
There's a wall right here, but that doesn't show up in plan.
This is
Yeah, I'm just looking at this arch opening here. So we've got the main tower, the new exit, the glass wall at the indoor dining, and then we have an open arcade arch.
Right.
And then this is showing a wall. This is showing building in there. So that's not like here's the new man door, which would be all the way at the left of that pillar.
This building is here, that line is here.
Am I just
Oh, you have
correct?
the old one?
We
Maybe?
must. Yep, we have the old
Yeah,
one.
sorry.
Okay.
Here.
Okay, that's our replacement.
Sorry.
And this isn't showing the trash enclosure in the foreground, right? Is
Well,
this-
you can see that line there, barely. I mean, it's just that they're both stone and they're not that far beyond.
Yeah.
So the stone on here is a sandstone,
Right.
and this looks like a totally different stone. Is that intentional, or is that
Yes, we would do it the same.
with the
It would be the
sandstone?
same, yeah.
Okay. So this would be the sandstone, 5-point sandstone, like what's on the trash enclosure?
It could be, yes.
It could be, or that's what we're doing. That's what you're proposing, because it looks different in the rendering. So I just want to make sure my comments are.
Well, I would assume that if the enclosure is sandstone now, we would do the same thing on the wall unless there's a need for another stone on both of them, and which we would entertain that as well.
Okay.
Okay.
The intent is that we want it to be the same so that that transformer kind of goes away and that we add some interest and some differentiation between the left and the right. So
Okay.
it's, yeah.
I don't think that we're sure yet, Clay, whether whether a 5-point sandstone and that kind of massing works. So perhaps they might both change. But if that's one of the comments, we'll definitely look at that.
Okay. Comments on the... Comments? Comment? Oh. Questions? Okay. Questions? Chris? No. Comments?
Yes.
Okay. Go ahead.
I guess I'll get started.
Yep.
I guess kind of the first thing I noticed was that with the tower element, then we have the 3 bays to the right of that, is that there are 3 different things happening in those, and to me that looks a little awkward, I guess. I'm sure the architects will pitch in more on that, but that's just kind of what struck me. And then I'd like to see that that transformer enclosure added to this elevation, because I think it's going to affect how we see that in the newly proposed window with the new stone veneer. And then I'll just point out that the clear story window above the trellis doesn't seem to be working. It seems like the rest of the building off to the right either should have windows also, or I'm not sure, but something seems a little off there. And I guess also the sign that's shown on this elevation would be far too large and wouldn't be approved by sign committee. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I meant to preemptively mention that that's just a placeholder at this point.
So that's my comments. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. Gary?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I'll first comment about the arcade with the 3 arches. They're one arch seems to be missing a column on the end, and it doesn't seem to be working well for me. I think the symmetry of the arcade needs to be worked out a little bit, as well as the tower, how the tower integrates with the roof and the height of the tower, and of course I'd look forward to seeing some of the detail, but as it stands right now, the symmetry of the tower doesn't work that well for me either. And how the existing, the existing buttresses that are going to be removed, how the roof will work with that at the other side of the tower or the side elevation would be an interest of me as well, to see how that it appears to be gabled off on the back end and then runs into the back end to the downstream side of the tower. So I'd be curious to see how that works out. And as far as the stonework, I would prefer to see native stone rather than the lump stone, the 5-point or something a little closer to block or something a little more Santa Barbaran than what is proposed here in this depiction. And that's my comment. I will agree with Chris on that window, the glazing there, that there should be some symmetry to it, not just thrown right into the corner.
Thanks. Thanks, Gary. Clay?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I'll come up here. I'm struggling a little bit with this project because when I look at the elevation, I'm seeing 4 distinctly different projects. There's the existing building, and then there's this thing in between, and then there's this structure, and then this. And it could just be the way it's being presented. I too feel that this clear story is a little out of place on this elevation with what else is going on here. But more importantly for me, I think this tower, the proportions of this seem a little bit off. These seem real thin compared to how tall that is. It doesn't look traditional enough to me to make it fit in this center. I'm really struggling with this stone wall because I think it's might end up being too massive. I like the idea of it, but I don't know if it's going to execute well, and it may just be better just to keep it simple and plaster. The window breakups are a little, they don't seem to fit anything else that's going on in the center. These seem a little bit more traditional. These seem pretty contemporary in terms of styling. And I'm not seeing a very cohesive thread from the beige building to the existing structure. And I'm looking for more consistency in the design idea.
Thanks, Clay. Paul?
I'm struggling with it because I don't think it's really good architecture
At this point, and I'm sorry to say that, it really doesn't fit our town and it doesn't fit the look. And the elevation that really tells it the most is this elevation right here, and the proportions of the tower in relationship to this existing structure, and as you approach it from Hitchcock. It's just, I understand the complete need of having wayfinding from the State Street and having something there to say, here's my entrance, but it does not have to be this large, and the proportions and the wackoness, it just, for some reason, to me it's looking like a 1950s shopping center, which I think we can design something a little stronger, and this elevation is bothering me because I turn the corner and I think of it as a three-dimensional mass, and I go, it's not working.
Thanks, Paul. Dawn?
Yeah, I agree with everything that's been said, and I also agree with you and understand that you would want to have a distinct entry, and I'm not opposed to it at all. I feel even more strong, though, about the entry tower, that I think it's grossly disproportionate. This is probably 20 feet tall, that arch, and it looks like it could belong on a courthouse or something for the size of this building. It's more of the proportions. It's completely disproportionate to historic Santa Barbara architecture. When you get a height of an arch that tall, then everything looks distorted and pulled up, and then these columns start to look really small. And then this face, actually, if I'm reading the plans correctly, and maybe I'm not, it looks like this storefront is just directly, almost close to the outside face of that plaster. So you're getting this huge box that doesn't read at all like if we were going to see an entry with an arch, we would see the columns very distinct, and the massiveness of those would be very distinct as they were grounded to the ground. And I agree with Clay that this element, although I think it's interesting to try to bring stone in, this is taken on a completely different scale. Everything, I don't understand the scale of how everything's working together, because everything is just so off to me from an architectural standpoint. So it's really hard. Those are the things that are the whole pushing the entryway up and the tower, and it's not working.
Thanks, Don. Keith?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll pretty much agree with my colleagues on all their comments. I think the overriding issue that Clay touched on is just the fragmented nature of the 4 different pieces, and doing something to unify it rather than break it up so much. And I agree that the proportions on these windows on either side are really horizontal and kind of modern, and it's unclear what it's trying to do. I think it would be more successful not even to have a tower, and if you just had 4 really thick arches, kind of like an Irving Gill sort of La Jolla Women's Club kind of thing. And as was stated before, if these storefronts, this glazing was set at the back of the arch, so you had this really deep recess. And yeah, I just think the tower, the proportions, as everyone pointed out, and the relationship to the adjacent gable is just not working. And I think if you had a perspective from kind of over in this direction here, it would really kind of show that. So I would look to other alternatives than the tower for defining the entry or change it drastically. So those are the comments.
Thanks, Pete. I think we have a consistent comments across the board, and I definitely agree with the board members on the fragmented design. I think that's the main thing here. We look at this and it looks really fragmented. It's broken up into like different pieces, and it doesn't read all as one. And probably if you attack it as on that basis and come back, that's probably going to be the best. I'm just going to run down the items here. We have the clear story window that we think needs some design detailing. We have the building floor, or the fragmented design. We need a cohesive thread in the design that runs right across the whole facade. The stone wall, we need to know where you're going with the stone wall, which stone design you're using, and we'd like to see when you present it that they are presented, even if it's not super accurate because of the software or anything, at least give us something consistent, because this is different from that, which is different from this. And also, I'll touch on the tower detailing. We see a line here, and it kind of represents that tower goes up, but when you look in plan, that line goes all the way across. So right now, that is in the same plane as that. So it's just not accurate. This drawing is showing that it's flat here, and the other one is showing that this steps back in. So there's a few little things going on. The signage will have to be by the sign committee. That looks awfully large right now. I'm not sure if that's going to be approvable. The glass detailing setback, being able to give us the feeling that these columns and have a substantial nature to them to give the style and quality of the building. And lastly, just make sure that your documentation is all accurate, because your elevation shows that this is built out, for instance, but here it's not. Even here, this is your new one. That's the door, and the door is not in here, and the wall here, that's wall. So even though this is the new one, there's little things like that we'd like to see a little bit. Everything is kind of reads well together. So that's the list. I think we're all pretty. We have the same sentiments across the board, and I'm open for a motion that bring us back to full board. We'd welcome you coming back and showing us what you got.
Mr. Chair, I'll make that motion with the comments that you just mentioned, items 1 through 7, that I think Gloria was taking notes of.
You have that, Gloria? Okay.
Mr. Chair, I'll second.
Second by Clay.
Under discussion, one thing that I've always disliked about this building is that rather large gable with a tall ridge. I mean, even in elevation, you're just looking at a large tile. It seems to me that you're doing a significant amount of alteration to the roof and extending it and adding onto it and taking it apart where the tower is or is proposed, that the applicant may consider studying that roof form in entirety and coming back with something that makes it look better in general.
Okay. So we have a motion. We've finished. All those in favor, say aye. 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 Against. Motion carries. Thanks very much. We look forward to you coming back. Thank you.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
Okay. So we pass these on. So, Paul, what's our next in line?
They'll give us, I think they just keep one.
Next is it after someone else or is it
One, two.
Wait, come up halfway, Rex, so we can send you back again.
Something better.
just break yourself a week or two?
We don't get theater anymore. Yeah, those days are gone.
Good.
So we're on 709 East Haley. That's because I see your name underneath here, so that must be it.
Kick it back out. Yeah. Tony had me come in early because you guys were going to fly right through all the other ones. So. Yeah, there's 3 sets there, and I want to apologize to the board right off for the late submittal of these, but we didn't get the surveyor out to the site until Friday and discovered that the drawings that the previous owner had given my clients were off by 2 feet. So.
Okay.
Had to do a quick redesign.
All right. So we have a...
So what we have, I'm Rex. I'm representing Jaime and Robin Melgoza on this property, 709 East Haley. There's an existing 500-plus square foot. It's a residence on the city's books, but it's been used commercially by various tenants over the years.
Do you have any photographs on each side?
I submitted them. I didn't bring any extra ones.
Okay, let's see what we got. Just do. Go ahead while he digs for it.
So what we're doing is we're converting that 500 square feet to a commercial use legally through the city through Measure E and adding an additional 300 plus feet to the front, kind of bringing that forward, a little pop out, and then adding an outdoor bathroom for his crew to use. He doesn't want his crew to come in and use the office bathroom.
Okay.
So let me
Yeah,
walk.
you go ahead. You walk us through.
Now that you got them all mixed up.
Yeah. Okay.
Shuffle them. So I'll just give them to you the way you gave them to me. This is taken from this corner, looking at the existing corner of the house. There's an existing covered porch on it.
Okay.
This is a little bit behind that, so that boulder is at that corner.
Okay.
Sorry to give them to you all.
It's all right.
Chris did it.
It's across the street?
That's directly across the street.
Okay.
This is next door to that.
Mm-hmm.
And this is next door further down.
Okay.
This is 2 doors down on the same side of the street.
All right.
This is a 2-story residence. It's immediately adjacent. There's a driveway that separates them.
You're right here. Okay.
And this was the old fire station. It's been converted to a park facility for weightlifting, that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Back of the existing building.
Mm-hmm.
The building from the street. From across the street.
Good.
And
Great.
that's down this side.
Thanks. Good to go. Okay.
So we're gonna continue that ridge line out and then break it down for a little gable pop out here and then do a pitch break over a front door at the front entry like so.
Mm-hmm.
Little softer the street, still leaving some room for some landscaping. I do not have landscaping with this project yet because we're going to have to incorporate that along with some stormwater management issues that what little landscape we have is going to have to absorb all the water. In the back, and this is something that Tony thought might be a point of discussion, we're putting all of our parking under a storage deck for him to store stuff up on top of a carport, a 4-car commercial carport.
A raised storage deck.
This is a new structural in the back. You know what I didn't get? Maybe you can see it in one of the photos. It right abuts a 2-story block building, so it's not like I'm offensive to the neighbor because it might show up in one of those photos.
Does this deck have sides?
Would have a parapet along 3 sides
Uh-huh.
and be open, and we can discuss how open it is.
Mm-hmm.
What he needs to put up there is scaffolding for a plaster contractor.
Oh, he's going to store scaffolding up there?
Yeah, the metal frames that they...
Yeah. Okay.
So he'd bring his truck in and offload them. So we can look at the front of that. Right now I'm showing it as completely open, but we can pull some walls in there if that's the board's wishes.
Okay. And it's uncovered.
It's just completely uncovered to the sky. It's stuff that they can keep outside. It's
drain into some kind of roof deck and
the roof deck, and then down into, we're going to end up having to do some sort of soil remediation here for the stormwater management.
Okay, great. You okay, Rex?
I'm good. That's
all
it.
right. So we have one speaker slip. Killam DeForest. Killam, take it away.
Thank you, Kellum DeForest. I see it's a little hard to tell from these photographs. There's some trees, mature trees on the. Are they on the property? And if so, could they be saved? That's my comment. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Killam.
That's this pine tree here that's scheduled to be removed.
Okay. All right, with that, we'll close public comment, bring it back to the board for questions. That's the tree. Huh? Oh.
You get one.
Can we ask questions?
Yes, we have questions from the board right now. Who's ready?
I'm ready.
Okay,
Can I give one more comment before we go?
Sure, go ahead.
We're going to replace the asphalt shingle roof with a two-piece tile over the existing and all of the new.
Okay, great.
Do you want a wood post or a column? Because your floor plan shows a column at the front that's thick, and then your drawings are a little misleading here. It looks like a little spindly, not spindly if it's a wood post, but
It'd be like a 6x6 wood post. I didn't want to go with a column because it eats up a lot of room right there at the entry, and so yeah, this
so it
shows.
would be a wood post.
I'd go with the wood post just to be a little lighter there, a little more porch-like instead of.
And did you talk to transportation yet about your parking and your maneuverability?
I worked out the maneuverability using their.
How do you get in and out of that handicap parking spot?
It works. I've done it in the computer using their template.
And did you talk to the city about? I'm assuming you applied for a permit to remove that pine tree because it's in the front yard. You have to have a permit. So
We've not applied for a
you
permit yet,
haven't? Okay.
and the tree is still there as of this moment.
Okay.
As of when I was there this afternoon.
Okay. Those are all my questions.
I don't want to.
Are you going on the
We're
record
hoping
for
that it
that,
is.
Rex?
It's still there.
Okay, Keith. Clay.
Mr. Chair, I have one question. This structure in the photograph is on this property, and it goes front to back?
Yes.
On the property line?
That's it. It goes property line to property line. It's 2 stories of concrete block. We'd be butting up against it.
And what's going on over here and what's going on over there?
Over here is a yard with weight equipment for that park that used to be the old fire station. This is the driveway and parking area for that adjacent. And I'm not sure how they're using that, if it's residential or if there's commercial tenants in there. But
So this driveway goes back. There's the structure next door.
yeah, the driveway comes right along.
Okay.
Thanks. Gary? Gary or Chris, questions? Move right along to, I don't have any other questions. Comments? Keith?
Take a stab, Mr. Chair. Thank you. You had me until the until the covered parking. I think what you're proposing to the house is, obviously fits the scale and seems to work with the existing building. It'd be nice to see on your site plan the surrounding conditions, particularly adjacent to this zero lot line parking building. Have some issues with the tree removal, and obviously if that is being proposed, we want to see some sort of mitigation in the form of some replacements. And then the covered parking just needs to be rethought. Just right now, it just looks like a big, kind of an ungainly rectangular box at the back of the lot there. So I think the open storage is definitely not something we want to encourage. And just the proportions of the openings. I know it's always a battle with the number of spaces you need and the parking clearances, but these horizontal kind of openings are just, that don't jive at all with the front building. So anyway, those are my comments. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Keith. Dawn?
Yeah, I don't have a problem with anything you're doing to the front of the house. I think it's nice and will be a nice improvement, but the back of the property is just kind of turned into a design-free zone of nothingness.
Let's sugarcoat it. What do you mean?
I'm just completely not getting it at all. I don't really know what to say. It's inappropriate.
I'll take over. Everything's fine for the front of the house. I understand all the stuff. I think next time you come to the board, show that you went through the Parks and Recs and got their blessing on removing the tree and what your mitigation is like, as Keith was saying, because that's going to be important. But what this needs, the covered parking and storage, it needs some architecture. And you have to realize when you look at it from the sides, this little 8-inch thick potato chip up in the air is going to look kind of funky. So you're going to have to add some thickness to the walls on the sides and then put some kind of gates or some kind of thing in front of here to give it some more character. And you've got the skills to do that. But what would be important to know is how tall will the stuff be that is stored here, and have some type of removable grates or some kind of thing that he'll willingly use, so when he closes it at the end of the day or on the weekend, we drive by, we look in there, the thing looks nice. It doesn't look like a junkyard, because this is not a true industrial area of town. I mean, it is a thoroughfare that everyone takes every day instead of... so covered parking needs some architecture.
Okay, great. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to just agree with what everyone said thus far. I'd also like to just say the reason I pointed out this photo was because what you're looking at now is a 2-story, white wall with some sort of tile detail on it. What you potentially be looking at with this proposal is a bunch of junk stacked up on top of a building. And I think if we can figure out a way to inject some design into that portion and come up with a way to screen it so that that's not what we're looking at all the time, then I think that can go somewhere. I'm not saying it can't. I'd also like to see if there's any way to save the tree, either with some reconfiguration of this or the second alternative for me. First alternative would be keep the tree. Second alternative would be, plant some mature trees potentially in this area that would help screen whatever's going on back there. So.
Thanks, Clay.
Yeah. Chris? He stole your thunder, huh?
I just looked at him and said, really, you want to save the tree? Yes, I think it would be nice to save that tree if possible. It's fairly significant. It's probably pretty messy, but it's nice.
It's very messy.
If you could flip-flop that front facade somehow, it looks like it might work out, although the roots...
The roots on is still...
Yeah, so do what you can. And beyond that, I'll just say ditto to everything else.
Okay. Gary?
Yeah, in a relatively landscape-blighted portion of town, to remove that cedar tree is pretty detrimental. And I think that you should rearrange the design to save that tree. I really do. I think it's an important piece in that block. And equally so, to have scaffolding stacked up on a second story from one end of the property to the other at 12 feet above grade with cinder block walls holding it up on each side, I just don't think that's very acceptable.
They'll be plastered, and I appreciated Paul's input about let's close it off, some gates that get used and stuff. That's what I was looking for when I came to the board. Was is it even plausible if I apply some architecture to it, Don?
Either second story with gates on it. I don't know, and I'm not even sure how that would look. So I don't know. Maybe pallets stacking them flat and making it lower would be better. I think it needs to be reviewed.
Okay, thanks, Gary. I think everything's been said already pretty well. The direction you went in the house and the design is totally fine. It's good for the neighborhood. The big thing is that see if we really have to lose the tree. I mean, it would be nice if we could save it. If we cannot save it, let's look for some significant mitigation. Screening of the back lot, the parking and the storage facility really needs to be rethought design-wise. When you do come back with that design, I'd like you to bring back a small site plan to show where the other structures neighboring the property are, where the masses of those structures are, and let's see, and show, when you show the elevation of this, if you could show the height or location of that building in back, so we could get that scale and proportion. Okay, and that's about it. So I'm open to a motion to go that route if we can.
I'll make that motion. Do I
Thanks,
have to
Dawn.
repeat everything you just said? Once again, I think you did a really good job of it.
Okay, I'll just...
You don't have to repeat it.
No.
Gloria's got it.
Did you get it,
got
Gloria?
Man, you're good. Okay,
So are you. You made my job easy. I'll make the
so...
motion.
Okay, so Dawn made that motion, and that would be returned to full board with those comments. We're seconded by Clay. Under discussion, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Against, motion
2
carries. 2 week continuance? Yes, 2 weeks.
Or do you guys meet every week?
We meet
No,
every other week.
every 2 weeks, yeah.
So 2 weeks.
2 weeks. Thanks, Rox.
Thank you.
Okay, so our last item of the evening, 401.5 Old Coast Highway. No? Is that it? We have 3 more?
Yeah.
What?
We all got the same thing.
Are we up?
Okay.
We're
Oh.
1.5 Old Coast Highway.
I'm just totally clueless here with no documentation. Yeah, I need an agenda that has these items on it. Yeah.
There's 4 of them.
Oh, yes. I remember this project. Okay, we might need, yeah. Low income housing project. Right? Okay, state your name for the record and proceed.
Everett Woody. Ricardo Castellanos.
Tony Fisher.
Thank you. Proceed, yeah. You could go ahead.
Okay. From our last meeting, there were some board members that were not present at that time, so I'm going to go ahead and bring them up to speed.
Thank you.
The neighbor at 401 Old Coast Highway and the owner of 401.5 Old Coast Highway have reached an agreement on the parking easement. So we now have a parking easement in place.
So these two.
These two.
Okay.
Now, one of the things that brings us back is that due to that agreement, we had to rearrange some of the parking in front of the building.
Okay.
So instead of having the attached carport that we had originally, we now have a detached carport.
Detached carport, okay.
Yes.
Part of the agreement, and we'll see, okay.
And that brings you guys up to date. So, from our last meeting, we had 10 comments.
Yeah. Can I have a copy of those minutes, Tony? Just give me a second.
You want to use one?
Yeah. I'll go ahead reading yours and I'll give it back to you as soon as it comes. Okay. So, provide an alternate solution to the 3 trees at the east property line. Relocate the coal Rhotaria tree. How's that?
Very good.
Specify dwarf citrus trees at the west side of the property. Provide a planter between the wheel stop for parking spaces 4 and 5 and the building. provide vines at the east property line backup area. There is concern about the sizes of several proposed windows. Applicant is to provide a solution that provides privacy for all bedrooms and provides adequate light and ventilation to all rooms wherever possible, particularly in the living room of unit number 3. Resolve and provide all details, including the carport. Simplify the design of the carport to match the detailing of existing and proposed architecture. Note the fence extension at the east property line. Relocate the barbecue to be outside of the required interior yard setback. Okay, I'll give that back to you. And then if you're going to go through them one by one,
We are.
Could you just read the motion that you're going to, since I don't have the sheet, just read the motion that you're attending to and then go ahead.
Okay. Item number 1, provide an alternate solution to the 3 trees at the east property line.
So that'll be on the sheet here.
Put it in the middle for the camera.
So that's the 2 original trees were right here and this one. I removed those 2 and just kept this larger one at this edge here. It's a lemon or citrus tree.
So we have a citrus here.
There was 3.
And we removed the trees.
Those 2.
Okay.
Yeah.
Item number 2, relocate the Coleteria tree.
And that's this one right here just got moved away from the fence more. So it was a little closer, now it's a little further out.
Okay. Thanks so much, Jordan. Okay.
Item number 3, specify dwarf citrus trees at the west side of the property.
That's the 3 on that side over here. They're all now dwarf citrus trees.
Just hang on. Give me a sec here. I don't think mine is the same as.
Were these minutes approved?
Yeah.
But they were approved as submitted, right? Okay.
Yeah. Maybe. Hang on a sec here. Yep. Okay. This is item page 6. Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Item number 4, provide a planter between the wheel stop for parking spaces 4 and 5. And those are located here and here. They're also located on sheet A 2.0 and A 2.1.
Okay. Okay.
That's it.
That's all right. Just one second, let me clarify that.
1, 2, 3, 4. Is this starting 1 here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5?
I think it goes the other way.
1?
1, 2, yeah.
1.
Yeah, that's correct. 2.1 and 2.0.
4, 5. So provide a planter between the wheel stops from here to there. Okay.
Let me.
Right here and here.
There and there.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Okay, item number 5, provide vines at the east property line backup area.
So these vines were along the fence before, and so we've added more vines along this back wall where the fence extension would go.
Okay. What's this, by the way? That
Which
little
one?
triangle.
You can. It's on the site plan. That's like a ribbon gutter of some sort. Here it is, right there.
Oh,
right,
okay.
Right. Yeah, it's an asphalt berm, an existing drainage berm.
Okay. Like a little swale?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Number 6.
There was a concern about the sizes of several proposed windows. Applicant is to provide a solution that provides privacy for all bedrooms and provides adequate light and ventilation into all rooms wherever possible, particularly at living room on unit number 3.
Okay. Let's have a look at that.
And now there was a comment by, I think, Clay, is that right? we were talking about this area here.
Mm-hmm.
Is that correct? The elevations show that, and also the door and window schedule, that door number 13 is a 10-light French door, so it allows light in. But we went ahead and added a 2630 window in that location, and that is delineated on sheet A 7.0. In this location and elevation.
Okay. In that privacy for all bedrooms, is there any other?
Yeah, there is. We studied the area between the two units. And what we did is we provided a 10-inch wide landscape strip between the two, where we're going to provide a steel arbor up about 5 feet, and then grow star jasmine vine on top of that. So that'll screen the kitchen window from the living window on Unit 3, and the two bedrooms on Unit 2 and 3.
Okay, nice.
And currently on the landscape plan, it's just shown at the bedrooms, so it would just need to be extended out. If
So
the
that
board-
will need to be done.
Correct.
here. Okay. Go ahead.
Items 7 and 8 are a combination. In terms of coordinating the building with the carport.
Yes.
On sheet, let's see, 6.0. Actually, it shows better on 7 because I have the building in the background. What I did was I took the arched braces off of the carport and went with more traditional corbel, and then integrated those corbels into the columns on the shed roof on the front porch of the of unit number 1.
Okay.
And then on sheet A51, there's an example of what the corbel. You can see it's more traditional. And the base, all we did was cut a 45-degree angle off of a 2x12, and then mortise an area in for the bolts to be hidden by the base.
Okay. As for the carport.
And then item number 9, note the fence extension on the east property line. On A2.0 and A2.1, item 15, existing 6-foot high wood fence. This is the point of connection here, and point of connection there. And then item number 10, relocate barbecue to the outside of the required interior setback.
I believe it would. This is where it was before, so now it's been moved down here to the corner.
All right.
Now there was one more item that didn't make it to the list, and it was with regards to the skylights.
Yes.
And was that, Jen, I don't see your name tag, I'm sorry, I don't know.
Gary.
Gary made an astute comment to the skylights. And our solution, rather than to omit the skylight, was to offer a translucent shade, which you see on detail 9 on A8.1. So that should diffuse a lot of the light during the evening hours.
All purple from the inside. Okay, and how many do we have? As it shown on the floor plan? I mean the roof plan?
Yes. I really didn't want to lose any of the skylights, just to allow more light into that area.
Okay, so right now they're clear skylights and it's operable from the inside to diffuse the light.
That's correct. Now we could also make them obscure glass to dull the light as well, coming in at night if we're that worried about the neighbors.
Just the view in the evening for the neighbors looking down on the skylight. So
Right. There is on the neighboring building.
And
there's a two-story building there, and there's one small window sitting here in that area.
Yeah. The whole dark sky. Okay.
That's what we're hoping the shades will do, diffuse that light.
Let me. Okay, I'm gonna. Any public comment? No speaker slips. Close that portion. Bring it back to the board for questions. Anyone ready for questions? Chris.
Quick question. I may have missed this in the very beginning because I stepped out for a moment. But
yes.
Why did you move from an arbor to a carport? It used to be just an arbor, right? It was open, or was it always closed top? Oh, I'm sorry.
What are we talking about? I'm sorry.
The carport.
Has a roof on it.
Is the roof new?
On it last time?
Yes.
Okay.
It did. Okay.
That was
Sorry.
my question as well.
Yeah, it actually went something like this.
No, the last time you were here, I thought the carport
Yeah,
was.
and it's still flat.
But did it have a solid roof on top? I guess was my question.
Yes.
It did. Okay.
That was my question as well, because I didn't know about that, and then I was wondering if you're gonna, which way is the roof pitching, and if how you're collecting your water. Are you doing gutters or sheet flow or?
We're going to do a sheet flow, probably to the back, but I haven't worked that out yet.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Gary.
Yeah, I had some questions. Did you do anything to the bedroom windows on Unit 1 as we requested?
No. Those were approved for preliminary, 3 meetings ago.
I think he's talking
No, they were
about
always
the privacy
discussed.
issue.
Privacy issue
was
where the
what, on the-
sidewalk was?
From the
Had to do-
sidewalk.
Had to do with the minute, I believe number 8 in the minutes. We got the walkway to Unit 3 and Unit 1, the bedroom windows are right there.
So they put that trellis or the.
No, not that
No?
unit. Unit
Which
1
Unit 1?
to the entrance to Unit 2. We
Over
go to
here?
if we go to the entrance to Unit 2. Yeah.
So there's a window here.
There's 2 bedroom windows right there. And
Oh, yeah.
This is like at least the 4th time that I brought it up. Yeah, it's been on my list.
What are you concerned about, Gary, on those two windows?
I was concerned with privacy issues because it's a Unit 3 access to go in front of Unit 1's access, and it's also the common barbecue area. So I'm concerned with privacy issues of those bedrooms. The entrance and the common area are new additions to this project.
Maybe he can put blinds like he's putting on the skylights. They have to be egress windows.
No, they both have bedrooms. Yeah, they're both bedrooms.
That's why I said they have
Here
to
and
have
here.
egress windows. So
So then maybe they have to do some landscape screening or pull the sidewalk away. There has to be some sort of solution. It's a new problem for this solution, for this division of units.
Okay, so right now they don't have anything. Okay, other questions? Questions on the side? Comments? I'm going to just let Gary go first.
Well, I would suggest that they come back with an alternate plan for the windows of Unit for the bedroom windows of Unit 1 to have privacy for it. If that means relocating how the sidewalk goes, or putting some hedges in between the sidewalk and those windows, or changing those windows, at least the first bedroom, changing the window to be high, and the second bedroom having an access up, screening the second one, but come back with a solution that offers privacy to those bedrooms from the common area and the entrance to the Unit 3.
Okay, other comments?
Comments, I'll agree with Gary. I mean, if there's anyone using that common open space, they're looking right into the bedroom, and that's a definite issue. I'd like to commend the applicant for addressing the landscape comments. Looking at, basically, I think all the fruit trees that are shown here should be listed as dwarf. I think the spaces are very small. It's probably fairly obvious, but I just want to make sure you understand that. And then I guess I thought there was no solid roof on the carport before, but what I'm looking at is these vines growing up those columns and having to sort of grow underneath the roof and come back up and over. So there may be, you may want to consider where those vines originate from. Okay. It might get really messy, and you might have problems with little vines growing up into the T and G in there, so maybe originate the vines in a different location. But other than that, I think all the comments that I had were addressed. Thanks.
Okay. Thanks, Chris. Comments? Dawn?
Yeah, I think I'm satisfied with everything that the applicant's done, and I'd like to send this project on to the building department, to be honest. And the only reason I'm not going to make an issue about the privacy issue that Gary brought up is because we see bedrooms facing streets all the time, and we never ask hedges to be grown in front of windows facing the street, or people walk into the front door, and there's privacy issues on lots of windows, and that's just one area that I have to kind of limit.
We see condominium projects and condominium changes. It's not unusual to ask for.
I'm okay with it, but I understand I may not be the only one.
Okay. Other comments? Keith? No comments? Clay? No comments? I have probably my main comment here is I think that you have, let me just go off of Gary's things first. Would you be comfortable making that window a high level window, or is there a reason that you want it low?
It's pretty high now because it's a raised foundation building. So at that point, we can scale it, but I believe it's about 4 feet off now.
Off of the, in the, like here, what's the elevation of that? Let's have a look at the elevation of that. When I say high, is that somebody couldn't look in. Well, that's these here.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
So you mean they're relatively high already?
You see that, Gary?
I did.
The head is.
6'8". So right now what you get is that somebody can stand inside and look out, but you can't see a lot of what's going on inside. I mean, okay. But for me, at this height, I'm comfortable with it. I mean, I understand where they come from, but I'm comfortable with these. I think that the skylight should have, I'm not so keen on just, I think what's going to happen is that the people on the inside of the skylights they're just going to leave it however they want to leave it. They're not going to be attending to that every evening. So I think that those skylights should really have a dark tint, the skylight.
Okay.
And I think I'd like to see you come back to consent board and show that dark tint on the skylight so that it at least minimizes the amount of light that comes out of it in the evening. So, okay, I'm open to a motion on this from anyone.
I'll make a motion for final approval as submitted, but there was one comment. Was there one comment from Chris?
The skylight, the doctor.
No, it was not that.
It was the dwarf citrus, but I think it's fairly...
That's easy.
Okay, so I'll just make a comment or a motion for final approval as submitted. But I have under discussion a comment to make about the skylight, and the reason that I think it needs to be clarified. Or I'll just make this comment.
Okay.
The tent, I don't think should be really dark, otherwise you're not going to get the benefit of the skylight, so it's not...
And maybe they could bring in options to look at.
Yeah, just not too dark, I wouldn't go. So the only comment, Gloria, would be to come back with a... why does it have to come to consent?
Sample?
For somebody has to see it, right?
For just the sample for the skylight, that's the only reason?
Yeah, to approve it.
All right.
I mean,
Or-
Tony can look at it.
Yeah,
It's fine.
I think it would be a condition at this point
Yeah.
to provide a tent to the skylight to minimize night glare.
Actually, I'm sorry to interrupt.
Color
Mr. Chair, we're also going to need a color board, I assume, and final landscape plans. We'll need a planting plan
Oh, we're not ready for final?
and an irrigation plan.
What
But that can
level
come
of
back on
review
consent.
has
So it
this
can come back
project
on
had?
consent then.
Has this project already gotten preliminary? Okay, so it would be coming back to consent with
With
the
colors.
comment about the skylight and to return with a finished schedule and final landscape plans.
Right.
Landscape and
There you go.
irrigation plans.
And we'll have
Full landscape plans.
Do we have a second?
I'll second, Mr. Chair.
Second by Clay.
Under discussion.
Discussion.
I have not really on Gary, I'm not sharing Gary's concern entirely, other than the fact that this is the only window in that one bedroom, and it's not going to qualify for egress because it's too high.
I know, I knew
potentially.
that.
So if you're going to be considering some things, this is why I'm doing this under discussion, you might consider making this a legal egress window and then proposing some mitigation for screening.
Okay, well let's go with that one time because that would never be approved at building department anyway.
We'll be back.
You'll be back.
Existing.
It's an existing structure. I don't know that we're not touching anything there. I don't
It's
know
a
if they're
good
gonna-
idea to address it,
No,
but
I
if you
understand
don't
that.
have to
I
address it,
understand.
then that's why I just let it go, because I knew it was an existing building and they might not say anything at the building department about that.
I see.
But it's the point that you understand.
So what are you asking of him to come back for consent? Oh, it's just under discussion. Okay. So it's not part of the motion?
No.
Okay. All right, so we have a motion on the table. We finished discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Do we have a seconder?
Yeah, Clay second.
Clay seconded. Opposed? One. You abstain. I'm going to abstain. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4. 2 abstentions. 301.
312.
We have enough?
Yeah.
You got a 3. Your number is higher than anybody else, so you get to run to the bank with that.
Thank you very much.
All right. Okay. So our next project is what is our next project? Thanks. You can have all of that.
Good, how are you?
903 West Mission Street.
Yeah.
Shall we begin?
I think so.
We need the drawings. So I'm Josh Bloomer from AB Design Studio. I've got Chris Gilliland from Common Ground, our landscape architect. Did I say it right this time?
No. Gilliland.
Gilliland.
RG.
One of these days I'll get it right. Sorry.
Happened at HLC too.
Yeah, Heidi Ferguson, our owner and client, and Anthony from my office. Do we have the color set, perhaps, Tony, for the center? Excuse me. Let me slide this down this end.
Thanks for trying though.
I think I already forgot it again.
Good.
Okay, go right ahead.
Ready to roll here?
Yep.
Okay, good afternoon, board members and staff.
Thanks, Tony.
We're here today requesting final approval for our project located at 903 West Mission. You last saw this project on August 23rd, 2010. And at this hearing, the board gave the project preliminary approval, which you guys now call, I think, preliminary or project design approval. The following comments were given at that meeting. This is the ABR motion. Preliminary approval and continued indefinitely to full board with comments. The first comment was reconsider the material choices for the entry canopy. And number 2, return with sizable material samples of all final finishes except for the concrete for final review. Proposed metal finish is to be non-reflective. So we've addressed those comments in our updated drawings, and we'll go through those in a moment. Unfortunately, after that meeting, our client and the neighbor were unable to come to an amenable agreement. The project was then appealed to the City Council. The project was reviewed by the Council on October 18th, 2010, and the appeal was denied by the City Council. The City Council did, however, give us some specific direction. We've requested their comments. Before I do that, the owner also wanted to make sure that she thanked all of the board members for attending and taking time out of their schedule to be at that meeting. It's appreciated, and she wanted to have you acknowledged for that, your time and effort. The City Council motion. Council members William White to deny the appeal and direct the Architectural Board of Review in the final approval to, number 1, study the two-story structure to minimize its height. 2, study the cantilever, which is the area facing off the backside of this end of the project, to minimize its size. And number 3, to make the window, which would be on that same elevation as the cantilever, to make the window dimensions a condition of approval. So I'd like to start by addressing the City Council comments, and then we can go through the minor comments that we had from the last ABR meeting. Comment 1, why don't we go to A501. I just have you look at drawing number 2 while I'm talking about this. Regarding the first comment to reduce the height, we worked through the floor and roof framing with the engineers to minimize this as much as possible. Because we're using a metal framing system, we've been able to minimize the floor and roof assemblies. The building has been reduced in height by 8 to 16 inches. So if you look on this side of the building, we have a slope that achieves the proper fall for water drainage. And so on this side of the building, we were able to reduce down 8 inches, and it nets out at 16 on the other side, which gives us about a 7.6 ceiling height in the room there. See.
2-foot cantilever.
The other thing I wanted to review on this is we're limited by, let's see, go to this section here. I just want to kind of get you guys clear on how we came up with the height reduction. This is a section showing the transition of the existing house into the garage. We're limited by the entry door height from the existing house to the new garage. The section through this location can be found here, and the existing finished floor is located about 2 feet above the garage slab. To make this work, we're installing a 6/8 door with a 2-inch jamb at the head, and this has effectively raised our ceiling height slightly in the garage, but the overall height has been considerably reduced in a height by more than 8 inches, and we feel like we've sufficiently addressed the comments. So we've made made this as tight as we can, and I hope it's clear what, if you guys have questions, we'll get into that. The second comment from the City Council was regarding the cantilever, the south portion of the building. We've reduced this cantilever by 4 inches, which means that we've pushed in from the neighboring property 4 inches. And we did this and still maintain a decent interior floor plan that works. We've also got a private outdoor living space on the north side that limits how far we can compress this building. There's no way to reduce that balcony area further because it would require going back to this staff hearing officer, and we don't believe that we'd be supported in asking for further square footage on the modification that we already have. Let's see, section 2. I can go through these comments again. Just talk about the setbacks and so much. You can see our building in relationship to the existing property line. The setback line section also shows where the building envelope allowed by ordinance. As you can see, we're very well within the allowable building envelope. We've kind of done a diagram here to show where the building envelope would be just based on this current zoning in the area. This little area here is showing the area that we gained from the modification. And then you can see where we've actually ended up today, and this dotted line shows where we were at the point of our last City Council meeting. We actually just printed this out today. We were thinking about our discussion here. Just showed if we had done a more traditional roof, it's a little bit, it probably wouldn't, with a traditional framing plan, there may have been additional increases to the height, but if you just take it on this existing framed building here and put a regular kind of slope roof on there, you see where you end up, and we've obviously avoided that, which is the point I made earlier. So we believe this is, in these efforts and the way this is working here is addressing the City Council's comment. The last comment from the City Council was in reference to the window facing the neighbor. That's this one here. They wanted the dimensions to be a condition of the approval. We've actually reduced the height of the window from 12 inches to 10 inches. And the window is fixed. It's documented as such in our plans and our schedule, and we're confident that this probably resolves the issue of the window. So I think now I'll just turn to comments from the last ABR meeting. Between our last hearing and now, we've worked with our team to tighten up the design. We've provided color renderings for you guys to review. There's this one on the cover. We've also brought in a finish palette. I think what I'll do real quickly is just flip through. These are in the set, but I'll flip through. Since it may have been a while since you've seen this, I just want to kind of go through the exterior and talk about our finished package. Mm-hmm. And then I'll hand it over to Chris and let him talk about the landscape design. Let's see, where do I want to start here? Actually, it's probably easier to go here. So we've refined the palette a bit and added some wood elements, as is suggested by a few board members. I don't think that made it into the comments, but it was a discussion, I think, at one point. At one point, we had proposed doing like a metal, kind of a metal horizontal members to enclose this upper balcony, which wraps around the stairway that goes back into this area. And we also had that here on the building facing out towards Mission Street. We've actually revised that and gone with a wood finish with a cedar. The trellis over the small deck facing out to Mission, we've reduced and tightened up quite a bit. Try to make it as concise as possible, still keeping with the spirit of the design. Gone to it. We've kind of, at one point we were proposing doing like a board finish concrete. We've actually gone to a more kind of a smooth trowel plaster, something I think it's a little bit less or more indicative of what you'd see materially in the neighborhood, and it doesn't call as much attention or activity to this elevation, which I think just kind of harmonizes the building a bit more. So we've got like a nice clean plaster look on all the plaster elements with a light gray roof finish. We've got a sample of the roof material here. It's non-reflective gray color. We've got our garage door, which is opaque glass with aluminum framing material. All the window frames would be clear anodized aluminum. The front door we've done finished the same color as the wood accent or the wood finishing we're doing on these areas of the building here. The other comment, I guess, was you wanted to see what the standing seam panel system we're using. This is actually from the manufacturer, so you can see it back there. I've also brought that panel below there. These aren't indicative of the finishes, but these are the substrate panels of this building here. I don't know if that's germane to anything you guys have questions about today, but we have them just the same. I think that's the end of my part of the presentation. I think I'll hand it over to Chris at this point.
Okay. Thank you, Josh. Just looking at the landscape, all the way at the back of the set here, 5 sheets. Color.
You know, I didn't mention this to you before you go there. But we may or may not need to come back here, but we do have a full set of details here today. Schedules are completed. So this is a set that's on its way to the building department as far as we're concerned. So if you have questions about the details, we can answer those as well.
Also, as you look at the sample behind us, that's not the color that will be has been chosen for the building. But as far as the landscape goes, it's really very much the same as what you saw in the preliminary approval. Very minor changes. We pulled this gate off the house a little bit more, gave us another opportunity for a planter pocket here. So we'll be growing vines up on this facade here, up and above the garage. We enlarged this planter a bit, but basically we have, all remains the same. We have the fence surrounding the property. The owner has dogs, so we want to keep them inside. It's, we have a small sitting area behind the garage, which we need space for here. But overall, the site is almost completely permeable, aside from these concrete slabs sort of sprinkled throughout the property. The driveway is a permeable concrete drivable grass. A few more for this little pathway here. Those are solid concrete slabs, but with planted joints. So we have very permeable site here. Irrigation plan, for the most part, all drip, except for in the parkway and for the grass driveway here. Aside from that, everything is drip irrigation, including the area, the second-story planter above, which would be bubblers. Again, the planting plan, there's no landscape person here, but I assume that Phil will take a look at it at some point. But very drought tolerant, very sort of, somewhat modern look, but using a lot of Santa Barbara plants. And a lot of this just, we created a lot of privacy for this sitting terrace with an olive tree here. We have these new, there used to be one street tree that was here that was a brachychiton. Now these are already in. These are 2 additional trees. So we've gone from 1 to 2 street trees. And those are in the ground currently. And beyond that, the planting is, it's fairly simple, fairly modern, but very drought tolerant. A lot of succulents and grasses and things like that. And then just details, basically, beyond that. So at this point, we'll pass it back to Josh.
I think the only thing else I could discuss at this moment would be to get into detailing, but I think maybe I'll reserve those comments for questions you might have. One of the things we've sought to do since the last time we presented this at the City Council is tighten the package up, do our homework very diligently with the structural engineer and the manufacturer of the parts of this part of the building, and make sure that all the details are cohesive from one end to the other, so it looks like one planned development, not two distinct projects that have been pushed together. I think we've been really successful at that. Our color palette, I think, is nice, and I feel the project's ready for moving on. So.
Okay, thanks. Okay, I'm just going to open it up to public comment now. We have 3 slips. We have David Black, followed by Pam Brandon, and that will be followed by Kellum DeForest.
Greetings.
Greetings.
Let's see. I'm here to support the project. I happen to live in the neighborhood over on Pampas Avenue, about 3 blocks away. I walk by this house almost every day, and in the interest of disclosure, I do know the owner, Heidi, but I've reviewed the plans. I've been familiar with the plans throughout the process, and I think the architecture is commendable. I think it would be a welcome addition to the neighborhood. I think it would add value to the neighborhood, and I would encourage you to support it for final approval.
Thank you. Pam Brandon, followed by Kellum DeForest.
Hi, I'm Pam Brandon. I am the homeowner living directly next door to this project, and I would like to express my opposition to these plans. I would also like to remind you that 40 neighbors signed a petition in opposition to this project as well. Two of the many reasons worth bringing to your attention today of why these plans should not be approved are, 1, there will be at least one municipal code zoning violation if the current plans are approved. The plans show the cantilevered section of the second unit, which is like the kitchen and bathroom area, over the required open yard space behind the garage. Municipal Code 28.87.062 states that open yards shall be at every point unobstructed by structures from the ground upward. Therefore, if approved, these plans will not be in compliance with the municipal code. This project already received a modification to allow half the open space dimension requirements. So with this cantilevered section over this other open space, this project actually has 0 of the open space dimension requirements. And all of this has been confirmed with an attorney. The second reason these plans should not be approved is that they fail to follow the ABR guidelines, the city charter, and the municipal code in regards to neighborhood compatibility. The plans include a building with, as you know, with metal siding and a very modern industrial architectural style, and this is not compatible with our neighborhood in architectural style, materials, size, bulk, mass, or color. I mean, it seems everyone, including the architect, as far as I understand, agrees that this modern architectural style is not currently in the neighborhood. However, the ABR guidelines say projects should be reviewed for neighborhood compatibility and specifically state that structures and additions should present a harmonious character to not clash or exhibit discord with the particular surrounding area. This design is very different and does clash with existing architectural styles of the neighborhood. And the guidelines, of course, also talk about being consistent with mass, bulk, scale, size, materials, etc. So again, clearly this project does not follow the standard ABR guidelines, the municipal code, and the city charter. And if these plans are approved, you will be allowing plans to go through with a known municipal code violation. Thank you.
Thank you. Kellum DeForest.
I will follow up on the comments. First, I want to note that this was not approved. It was approved by the split vote. The appeal was denied on a split vote by the city council. So there are members of the city council, and I think it was 4-3, as I recall. So it's not universally accepted, and it has problems. One, of course, is its height and bulk. I mean, a few inches isn't reducing the height significantly in this neighborhood of homes designed in the 1920s with traditional style. Its international style clashes with the neighborhood. And maybe this could be lessened by the industrial metal surfaces be replaced with wood. And I think I saw them floating around here, but they haven't been shown to the public, that none of the renderings show the adjacent homes and how this addition fits into the neighborhood. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. With that, I'd like to close public comment and bring it back to the board for questions. And who's open for questions?
Mr. Chief.
Keith?
Question. For the applicant, you touched on the 3 points of the council. You reduced the vertical height 8 to 16 inches. You reduced the cantilever 4 inches. I don't recall about how you went about making the window size a kind of a fixed condition of approval. Is there
Right. Sure. I believe that the condition of approval would be something given to us by staff or as part of the approval process, and maybe in your motion. I'm not sure about that. What we show in our drawings is a fixed window. It's non-operable, and we've reduced the size. And my comments were just that we've documented it in the plans carefully, its height, size, and its inoperability. So
understood. Okay.
If I think to satisfy the city council's comment, there would require a condition on the approval. Not we've done everything on our end to create that condition.
Next question is for staff. Tony, on the provision for the open space, as I recall, there's a section in there that talks about a vertical clearance that's allowed over an open space for it to be counted as open space. Is that correct?
I don't know. I'll have to look it up.
I had the same question.
My recollection is there's something in the neighborhood that says, there's a specific height and it's like 7 feet or something in that neighborhood that you're allowed to have an overhang or consider space that has that vertical clearance towards open space. So I'd like,
if I can find it.
Yeah, I'd like that to be looked at, please. And those are my only questions.
Okay.
And I had the same question. And the reason I had it was because if it were true that you couldn't have any horizontal obstructions at all from the ground up, you couldn't have an overhang on a building.
Mm-hmm. Or trellis.
So it doesn't make any sense. You can't have a 2-foot overhang on any house because it's still a horizontal obstruction.
If it's for open space.
For open space.
Or required open space.
And it's the same issue here, whether you have it's essentially reading as a 2-foot overhang from anybody in the yard. So I had that same question. I don't think it's an issue, but I want that confirmed by staff. And then the only other question I had is about if Chris, you could illustrate how you're doing some more. Where's the vertical landscaping against the house? Can you describe how you're addressing the softening of the architecture?
Sure.
With the landscaping.
Okay.
Let's go to the planting plan, which is L3.
Use this too. Kind of relates to these.
So, I did mention the vine that grows up and above the garage here. I have a medium-sized clumping bamboo here at the corner. That'll be upwards of 8 to 10 feet high. Next to that is a Kentia palm, which will top out. It'll continue to grow, but it's very slow. Sorry about that. The Kentia palm located here would, depending on what size we put in, but that would basically, I think we've shown it somewhat here on this rendering, but that's sort of more of it's a substantial palm, very graceful, pendulous sort of palm fronds. And then along this facade, it was somewhat left open, more foundation with Liriope gigantea, which would be more about knee-high or so. And then around the corner here, we have the soft agaves with the blue version of that. So that's going to be about waist-high. And then this is sort of that aloe barbary, which is sort of the Dr. Seuss-looking tree, which would be 10 to 12 feet or so. And then about waist-high shrubs in here. And another bamboo at this corner. That would be a clumper and be fairly tall.
Don't forget this area.
Right, and then also we have the second-story planter with cascading vines coming down. And this olive I mentioned over here.
I saw that one. Thanks.
This actually, from the street view, will help. This is more of this is the chondropetalum. It's kind of a wispy, somewhat grass-like plant, but from any views here, that's going to help to soften the fence, and also because it's going to be eventually, about 4 feet or so, 4 to 5 feet. That'll help. And we have a 4.5 feet. Oh yes, 3.5 feet exactly. Be topped out at 3.5. And then a hedge along this property line here. Okay, thanks.
Okay, great. Finished? Questions? Paul, questions? Gary?
No.
Okay. I had one question. The siding that you're using here and the siding that you're using on this part here, are you using the same profile that you're using on this roof, which is that back there? So it all has that, what, 2 and something inch ribs or something like that?
Correct. It's 1 3/4 inch.
1 3/4 inch. Is that a conscious move on your part that you want that high profile ridge on the front on these two?
It's a standard standing seam ridge profile, and it's pretty typical in a residential application to have about 1 3/4 inch. And the one thing that's changed since I think the last you saw this is initially we had proposed using the manufactured panels on the exterior of the addition, which were a wider panel. We were trying to match those up, and one of the things we discovered in the process, and I felt, especially dealing with this building and the tying of the two together, we really needed to have that materiality from one end of it to the other really read continuously and have the same detailing throughout. And so we've kind of, the owners agreed to take the specification up a bit in the project to achieve that. So we're doing the same finish product on both parts of the building, which would be the existing roof, this addition, and this roof. And they're all 18-inch standing seam panels, 1 3/4 inch. And we've avoided doing any knuckle details where the transitions. We've done a lot of tight transitions where, especially where the building comes down from a wall to the roof. We've maintained the same seam going up and down, which is it's a bit more complicated, but it tightens it up, and you have you don't have to end up with a detail where you have a piece of sheet metal covering that transition, creating kind of a knuckle, which starts to look a bit clunky for residents.
All right, I just trying to. I could see that you'd want to have the continuity. I personally feel that the ribs on these two structures here, which would be this one here and this one here, gives it a slightly heavier look. But if you consciously looked at that, and that's what you're after, as opposed to going with the same width, the same material, but with a slightly lower profile rib, then I don't think at this point I don't have an issue. I know all of the previous presentations that you had, if I'm correct, never really showed that heavier rib on these front two buildings.
Yeah, I wouldn't, unfortunately, I don't agree with that. I think we've always anticipated that kind of a rib. That's standard for this type of roofing. Although, if we did study what you're talking about, I think having a wider panel.
I'm not worried. It's not the width. I think it's the height of the rib. The height of the rib.
That's a standard. Like, I've driven around the west side and seen some other. There's a flat roof or a metal seam roof towards the Mesa area of the west side, and it has the same standard, standing seam roof that you'd see on any residential project. If you do like a non-manufactured product and you bend it on site, you can maybe get it down to 1.5 inches. But to maintain proper waterproofing, I can't imagine going to any tighter of a seam. It becomes
okay. I just want to make sure it's a
difficult,
conscious effort.
Yes. It is.
Okay. Comments?
Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
Dive in. I think when we get back to the City Council's conditions, I think those have been met with a reduction in height and minimizing the cantilever. The cantilever's only 26 inches, so I think that's reasonable. There is a provision in the zoning ordinance that allows for a certain minimum vertical clearance to be counted as open space, and it's up to staff to do the homework on this, but I'm pretty sure that this complies with that from my understanding of the code. I do think that there should be some note added to the drawings about the kitchen window, and I think the intent of the City Council's condition was that this wouldn't be remodeled in the future. So I think there should just be some general note or flag note here somewhere that just kind of drives that point home. I realize that theoretically someone would have to get a permit and that would be the stopping point, but I don't think we want it to go there. We want to just have a note on the drawing to make it just obviously conditioned in that way. I like the addition of the wood to the palette of materials on the facade. I think that's a good move to just warm things up, as is the elimination of the board form concrete. I think having the same metal panel on kind of both pieces of the composition unifies it, and I think the design is a lot stronger now than when we saw it last, because it's simplified and the material palette is warmed up, and I think the dull gray here is acceptable. So I think the applicants met the conditions of both this board and the City Council. Is ready for final approval.
Thanks, Keith. Don?
I agree. No further comments.
Okay. Paul?
For some odd reason, I've missed the past few presentations for this project. I saw it the first time when it was with a different architect, and then I missed a few, so I'm going to abstain from voting on this. But I will say that it is a very complete set of plans. The architecture is tight, and it's you've done your homework and all that kind of stuff. But I don't think it's appropriate for the neighborhood. And I think the City Council made a mistake, because when you drive by the west side, there's a certain character there, and this project does not fit the character of the neighborhood. So I can't support the project, but I'm not going to vote because I haven't been involved through its iterations that got it to this point.
Okay, Paul. Gary?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have been following this project, and consistently I've been against it. And the only reason I'm against it is because of neighborhood compatibility. So I'm going to keep with that consistency. Some of the things I'd like to mention about this plan, about what the city council has asked them to do. I commend them on it. The height of this building is at a small 19'4", and that's a very positive thing that we look for. I'd have to agree about the window. It's not going to be changed, and I can understand that because it's a kitchen, it's a small footprint. I doubt that the window will ever be changed. However, they did ask for specific verbiage about the window as to its future, for future remodeling. If some other person comes along and wants to remodel this, that window be structured as it is a privacy window, and I would like to see that verbiage on the plan as well. And the only other thing that would strike me as different is on the lighting. I just don't see any notes on it that it's downward lighting. I looked at the submittal documentation, and just make sure that the top of that is not open, that the lighting is not going to be upward lighting, and it will be downward.
Okay, thanks, Gary. I like the planning commission. I mean the city council. Your response to the city council, and I agree that we should have something on the drawings, just noting that the size and location of this window was a condition of city council appeal resolution, so, and any change would require a review by whatever body would be. In fact, you just have to say that it was a condition of city council appeal resolution, and then that would maybe note to people that if they would have to go and they can't really change that easily like that without seeking the right approvals. I like that you've put the wood infill in these battens, and I like the metal color that you've used. I think that this gray green is a wonderful color for this, so I think it's going to work very well. I do like that you've softened the concrete a bit. I mean, it could have gone both ways. I mean, if it was really high quality concrete, that could have worked too, but I think that the plaster is going to give you a consistent finish that you'd be able to control probably a little bit easier, and is more consistent with the neighborhood, so I think that was a good move. So your city council resolution points, I think, was really well done, very well. I think that you've also addressed the ABR's comments, the last comments. I personally feel that I agree, yes, that the same metal throughout would be the same and the same sizing and width. I personally think that the ribs and the more rectangular shape usage of the metal might have been more successful with a lower height, but I don't have enough. I couldn't say that what you have there couldn't work just as well. I just don't have so I think that's really more of a personal comment and that I'm not going to let that infuse into to how I make the decision on this. So I think that you guys have really come a long way with this. You've kind of jumped through a lot of hoops, and I think that you've done a good job. So I think we're ready to make a motion. We have one abstention. We have one that's going to vote against. I will be voting in favor of the project moving ahead. So I'd welcome a motion from someone.
Motion would be final approval as submitted with the following comments. Add a notation fixing the dimensions of the kitchen window and prohibiting future enlargement or relocation of that window. And confirm that the proposed exterior light fixture is a down light fixture only, no uplighting.
Second, I have no under discussion items. So, all those in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Against? One against, one abstention. Okay?
Thank you.
One abstention. Paul abstain. Carries against. 3-4. Okay. Is that? I think you could take that one back. Yep. There we go. Okay. So it does bring us to the last item now. 735 West Mitchell Torina Street. Sherry and Associates Architects. Who is that?
I'm Dawn Sherry. I'm the architect on the project. You guys have all seen this once before. The last time I was here, I brought up a discussion item about the need for 2 modifications for alterations made to an existing legal non-conforming structure. It's been clarified by staff that the project will still need those 2 modifications, but what staff is going to be doing is analyzing projects on a case-by-case basis, because what they have to prove or what they have to determine is whether or not the addition qualifies as a substantial remodel that changes the architectural character of the structure. I think in some instances even they won't require the mod necessarily in instances where it's not changing the character. But I'm not exactly sure how that works. All I know is that I've been given an indication to move forward with my proposal. The mod that they could not support, however, was the mod for splitting of the private open yard area, because they could not make the finding that I was not making the existing situation worse, when in fact I was making it worse, because I was adding a 1-story portion to my existing 1-story building that reduced the existing non-conforming open yard. So what I was charged with was how do I create a project that does not adversely affect the existing open yard. So my first proposal back to them, which was not received, I'll just give you a little history, was not received that well, was to relocate my existing non-conforming parking space that was right here, backing out onto Chino, relocate it over to Mitchell Torina Street. And they didn't like that idea because it just took one nonconformity and moved it to another area where I needed another mod. So I went back and further studied how can I create a project that that could be possibly supported with a modification. And so what I came up with was converting the existing lower level bedroom, which used to be a garage, back to a garage, a 1-car garage, and then still maintaining a driveway, but doing it in a way that that driveway can be used as private open yard area. Currently, there's a high fence that was approved on a previous modification all along Chino Street. It's a 7-foot high fence, and staff has recommended that I keep this existing legal fence high so that we can maintain the private open yard along Chino. But now what I can do is I can use the driveway as an area for the kids to roller skate or use their bicycles. And I'm keeping this gate, but I've been requested by staff to come up with a design that incorporates a lowering of the gate to the 3.5 feet that brings it more into compliance for backing out and eases the maneuverability of this car that's going to be backing out onto Chino. I'm leaving this whole Mitchell-Trina Street proposal, my first proposal, alone. What that did was it allows me, what I do make is my 1,250 square feet of open yard, but I don't have it contiguous open yard. I do meet the 20 by 20 dimension in this area, but I don't meet it in this area. Last time you all saw the project, the mods that were presented, of which this was one, were deemed to be no aesthetic impact. But I suppose that you're going to be asked to also state make that same statement if you're okay with the project. The last meeting, there were several comments, the first of which was just the quality of the architecture is appreciated. The second was remove the skylight over the bedroom dormer on the east elevation, which I have done. And incidentally, this window was bigger, and there was some discussion as to whether it was appropriate that this window was a little larger than the other two, so I've made them all small windows. There was a request to, the next comment was to provide composite elevations along Chino and along Mitchell-Trina, and we've provided those. This is the existing market and the high fence. This is my new addition beyond. The market all day until 2 o'clock in the morning is just open doors, so it's just a simple elevation shown. This is the existing one-story building next to it. The elevation along Chino is pretty stark, and I'll comment on how I'm going to do some work on this portion of the elevation in a minute. This is an existing fence to remain, so I can keep my private open yard private. I'd like to drop the gate somehow in this area. I'm still trying to resolve exactly how to make that transition from the higher elevation down, but Transportation's asked me to look at that as I go throughout the process. Here's the existing adjacent garage on the neighboring property. I also brought additional photos showing and that's also part of the same comment, photos of the adjacent area. So this is looking over the yard from here, looking at this existing one-story residence, and then looking into this area. That's what you see into the neighbors. Same in the back of that structure, that little shed roof. This is a photo looking, looks like they have an accessory structure back in this area somewhere beyond. This is the Harbor, or the West Side Market front facade with the fence, and this is the adjacent residence to the east of that, the one story. This is the this is relevant because this is the
driveway.
This is a driveway, and this is that one-story garage. And then it's important to note that where is the that there's one window. There is one window, but it's 27 or 28 feet away from the property line, and it's a kitchen little bay window. It's the only window that is anywhere near what we're doing here. So I wanted to show that as well. I've decided to add some landscaping along Chino Street because there is none right now. It's just a bed of weeds. And I'd like to do something in this planter box as well at the street elevation. We've been asked by staff to repair and repaint the entire fence because it's looking a little shabby. And I think that with the combined landscaping and then also rejuvenating the landscaping that was approved under the previous mod and updating the fence and then altering it here to lower it for transportation would be a nice gesture to the neighborhood and make the improvements that we're doing to the residents not stand out. It would just upgrade the entire property. I haven't made any changes to the plans except for the fact that this is going to be a garage door. Now I have to have a 20 by 10.5 foot garage, which I meet the requirements for. And I was asked to look at, I talked about the relationship with the dormers on the east. That was the next comment. Study having a shed above the entry porch. And I studied that, but I still really liked defining the entry with a little gable. And what I've done is I've lowered a little. I think the beam that I showed supporting it was just a little higher than it needed to be. So what I'll end up doing is just dropping that a little, so it's a little more human scale. This is the new garage door, and I think that's the extent of the changes.
Okay, we open this up to public comment. Seeing absolutely no one, I'll close that, bring it back to the board. Questions? And who's ready for questions?
Mr. Chair, I have a staff comment.
Great. Thanks, Tony.
I spoke to Betty Weiss, city planner, last week about this project, and she indicated that staff would support the 2 requested setback mods, but was undecided about supporting the open yard mod. But at this point, you have the 1250, so it would be a mod to provide that in 2 separate areas.
Mm-hmm.
But that was before staff had seen these plans. You know, Don just brought these to the meeting, so we haven't reviewed this exact set of plans.
So the only one in contention right now, the only one under consideration with them is that open yard.
Well, the request is for 2 setback mods and an open yard mod.
You got, so the 2 setbacks are being supported, just the open mod.
Of course, it's ultimately up to the staff hearing officer to make that decision.
Yeah. Okay. So, yes. Clay, go right ahead.
Is there a different roof plane going on here?
Oh, I'm sorry. This was
is that intentional? Or?
This was supposed to have been carried through here, and the line didn't get picked up because what's happening is this,
So this is
goes,
like
yeah,
this,
exactly.
on all 3?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I was wondering if I was going crazy or not.
Right now, that's what it's doing.
Okay.
It's a split pitch in those areas.
And these go here too.
Would that be doing that here as well?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's going all the way there. That's nice.
Any others? Okay. Paul, you had questions?
Well, going back to the way it used to be, it's a comment, because I didn't have a problem with this being a larger window, and I knew it was a bedroom on the other side, and you changed it because of one person's comment, but if you think it needs to be a larger window, but I thought that this dormer was different than these other 2, but if all 3 dormers are basically the identical with the roof pitch, then it's good that all the windows are the same. So.
Okay. Questions?
Mr. Chair, I'm actually going to abstain from this. I haven't seen this one before. I don't know why, but I'd like the opportunity to read the previous minutes and review the tapes. And
Okay, great. Gary?
Yeah. Do you want to refresh my memory again? The second story, you're getting a modification for the setback on the second story?
No.
And so the second story is within 2 feet of the...
No. The
That's not-
second story conforms to setbacks. The only reason that we need the mod is now the new policy is that even a conforming addition requires a modification because you're making the conforming addition to a non-conforming lower level.
That's why it was. Okay. All right.
Thanks. Keith, you had no questions? I just had a question on the parking. It's a 2-car but tandem parking.
No,
goes
it's
in
1
front.
car.
But it's only one.
It's 11 feet 3 inches by 20 feet.
Okay, and only one's really required for the whole.
Because we're not increasing the total square footage of the lot by more than 50%. and they had one uncovered space, and now we're actually making it less non-conforming because we're taking away the previous mod and providing a covered parking space where no covered parking space was ever approved. I mean, it was, and then it was taken away with the previous mod. So we're actually
Okay.
lowering the amount of non-conformancies.
Okay. Do you have any idea what would happen if you didn't get the mod for the open yard, splitting the open yard area?
Yeah,
What would be the consequence here?
I would.
Let's say if you were to show it here, what would be the consequence of not being allowed to split that?
I'm already non-conforming. I was already non-conforming. Even if I didn't do anything to the property, I was non-conforming. So what I had to do was provide a solution that didn't make the non-conformancy worse. So by adding here, my argument is that I'm picking up here by moving the car, and that way they can use this area. It's more usable than they ever had, whereas if I don't have I essentially don't have a project if I can't get the mod, and then I would just keep that parking spot here, and actually he would probably have to sell the property because he just had two kids.
So he is here now, this parking spot is right here?
No, it's right here.
Okay.
And
right now the open yard is up here, is that it?
And right now the open yard is here, and all of this.
Yeah,
which
so the
we're
present
keeping.
open yard couldn't comply anyway.
It never complied.
It never did, yeah. So
Yeah.
it's already split. Non-conforming, it's split already. Yeah.
You're saying you're going to have kind of double duty on the driveway now. Is that going to be part of your open space area?
You know what? I was just thinking about that, and I'm pretty sure that I included. I think that this is. I'm pretty sure that this 725 is this area, this whole area, and then with this 588, that brings me over the 1250. Is what?
Include.
Yeah, I'm
counting
pretty
that.
sure.
That was the question.
Yeah, I'll have to confirm that, but I'm pretty sure that's how I did it, because that's shaded and that wasn't. So. But in answer to your question, if I don't get this mod, which I was told to reapply now, I was at least given that indication to reapply. Of course, staff is, as you know, very careful about how they state. They can't tell me that they can approve a mod, but we had a long discussion about this not being approvable. I was told to go back to ABR with this to see how it was received. If I don't get this mod, then I suppose what I would do if the owner decided not to sell the property is I would not be able to do this addition. I would go back to having this old non-conforming yard, and I would do a covered patio underneath here, because then I would not be making the existing situation, and essentially I would not be able to add anything to the lower level at all, but I could add my second story addition, because that's the mod they are saying they can support, these two mods. So that would be the resulting proposal, and to me I think it's more important to have a house that you can live in that has rooms instead of a shaded covered patio that nobody's going to use. That was my theory.
Can I ask you a question about this concrete slab that's here? Is that used for something right now?
No, it's just a transition from the store to the yard, but I didn't even include that 83 square feet in here, but I suppose I could have. But none of them, this one doesn't either, and I'm including it. So is all the yards are in the setback. All these yards are in the front yard. This is.
So, okay, no, we're going to start comments now. So, comments. I was trying to think something out in my head. I was playing for time. Comments now.
My comment is, I think the architecture is fine in this building. We need to push this on to the staff hearing officer to see what the outcome is. Once we know the outcome, then we'll review the architecture one last time. Because right now, there's no project if it doesn't get the staff hearing officer approval. The impacts aesthetically with the requested mod are minimal. I don't think it's an issue from my perspective, so I think it's ready for the staff hearing officer.
Okay. Clay?
Mr. Chair, I'd second that comment and just go on to say that they're making a non-conforming situation more conforming, so I think that the impact has been lessened. Therefore, I don't see any reason why this modification would pose any aesthetic impacts.
Okay. West Side boys?
I concur. It doesn't appear to be a fixable situation, and I think the addition is going to upgrade that particular corner. So I think it's a positive thing. So one other comment I would make is that the flagstone, look into using some in the patio area. You're looking to using something permeable, so we can can collect some of that water in that area, as opposed to having it all grouted.
Okay. Chris? You have Keith?
I agree with everyone else's comments. I think that moving on to the show, and then if you do have a project, then coming back, would like to see what kind of treatment you're planning for the existing store mass and the fence to kind of blend the whole thing in. But that's down the road.
Okay. I think you're making a better situation than what we have, and I cannot see around what you have existing, that this isn't making it better. And the fact that this is in the back there, I think that works out well. So I feel this is like Paul. Let's move it on to the staff hearing officer. I don't have an issue with the architecture. I think it's pretty fine shape. I would, if everything goes smoothly and everything, I would like to see landscape-wise, maybe something in this area right here, that maybe not a huge plant, but something that got over the fence, somewhere either in here or right in this corner, that would somehow split the masses up visually from the street, especially since this architecture here is so different to this one. So some kind of element in here that would help in that regard to help that, so it would look less of an addition that was joined to that, and I think that would work better. So that's my only comment.
So, Mr. Chair, if you're okay, I'll make a floating motion.
Yep.
And the motion is to indefinite continuance on to the staff hearing officer with the following comments. The ABR finds the architecture design to be good detailing and good resolution, a good solution. We find that the proposal is taking an existing non-conforming situation and making it better. We find no aesthetic impacts to the requested modifications. We would like the applicant to return back to ABR with some additional information about the existing store mass along the store along Chino, and any architectural changes that are going to occur on that store elevation, as well as along the 7-foot fence that's on Mitchell Terena and Chino. We want the applicant to study landscape opportunities, to have landscaping coming over the fence where possible, as well as to provide a flagstone for permeability.
Can I make one more additional comment before you vote?
Okay.
Somebody want a second before I make a comment? Or?
Do we have a second? Second on the
Yeah, I'll second.
Gary, under discussion. While you think about under discussions, we'll hear your
I
comment.
forgot to mention that it was, Betty did ask me to see if there's any way that I could bring this wall back by the issue that I have is my stairs getting up to the upper level hallway. But she told me to look at any way to move this front wall back as much as I could. So I'm still working on that. I just thought I'd bring it up because I don't think it affects your decision at all, but I wouldn't want her to make me come back if I come back 6 inches to come back to you again before going back to mod. So I'd like that just mentioned that whatever attempt I could make, maybe acknowledge, it would be a good thing. I don't know. So
It fall within our approvals.
I would say that any design changes that happen to this architecture to lessen the building's size and footprint do not need to come back to ABR prior to staff hearing officer regarding the wall along Chino, the building wall facing Chino.
Okay, so we have a first and a second. And the discussion is finished. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Against? Motion carries.
Thank you.
And one abstention, Chris.
Thank you.
And that was the last item of the evening. Good night, Santa Barbara.